In one sentence summary, the story of a girl wearing a book paired with a counterattack. It is clear that the sisters were born on the same day in the same year, but one is favored and the other is prejudiced. Favoritism and prejudice are two great mountains. Those who have confidence are fearless, while those who do not appear lonely and disappointed in it. Only when you break away from the cage of dependence can you have your own Xintiandi. Female supporting roles can also gain their own preferences. Keywords of the novel. The female supporting character never believes in fate without pop-ups. The female supporting character never believes in fate for downloading the complete TXT collection, and the female supporting character never believes in fate for reading the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Hui Fu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Hui Fu. Miss, why are you suffering? The Marquis and his wife have arranged a boat for you. You just need to take the boat back to your mansion. Why suffer this crime? In the mountains and forests, a carriage was driving through, and a girl in a bun was lying by the window of the carriage, feeling uncomfortable and nauseous. The other looked at a girl of similar age and couldn't bear it. He placed his hand on the girl's back and gently patted it. Grandma Chen, just say a few words less. Miss is already feeling very uncomfortable. Do you want the coachman to stop and let Miss get off the carriage to rest? Are you going to die? Before setting off, Madam made every effort to explain that you must return to the mansion before the Dragon Boat Festival. The young lady is stubborn and refuses to take the boat, and taking the land route would already delay time. If you rest casually, when can you return to the mansion? Chen Mama pointed at the little girl, seemingly not exerting force, but leaving red marks everywhere on her fair and tender forehead, making the little girl dare not say more and only shrink her body to avoid Chen Mama's iron fingers. At this moment, the two completely ignored the young lady lying by the carriage window, only breathing. Stop. Stop for a moment. The young lady weakly called to stop the carriage, and the little girl had just been cleaned up. At this moment, she only dared to look at Chen Mama with her eyes, but Chen Mama seemed to have not heard it. The coachman was afraid of trouble, so even when he heard someone seemingly calling to stop, Chen Mama remained silent. He just ignored him and continued to whip away the horses on the bumpy dirt road in the mountains, walking faster. In the quiet mountains and forests, only the sound of carriages galloping far away can be heard. At this moment, the young lady Qing Yuguan, who stubbornly insisted on taking a boat in the car, felt a bit regretful. Who knew that in modern times, people who have never fainted in a carriage would actually faint in a carriage? If I had known earlier, she would have risked being thrown off the ship and taken a boat back to the capital. Yes, Miss Qing Yuguan came through time travel. When she was born, others did not shy away from her newborn child, which made Qing Yuguan realize that she had come to a world in a book, and the protagonist of the book was not her, but her younger sister who was born on the same day and month of the same year, only 1 hour later. As a supporting role, she only appeared twice in the book. One time, when she was born, her mother died. As the daughter of Kuqin, although she was the eldest daughter of the Ho family, she was regarded as unknown by the Ho family from birth. Her mother's family, the Hua family, was completely ignored by the Hua family because her birth killed the most favored daughter of the Hua family. She was sent to the ancestral home of the Qing family and raised by the clan. And her second appearance in the book was when the Hua family was victorious and still in court, asking the Qing family to meet their granddaughter whom they had never met before. As a result, Qing Yuguan was personally sent by the Qing family onto a transport ship, but who knew that he met a water bandit halfway through and fell into the water and died. From then on, as the younger sister born on the same day and month in the same year, the female protagonist replaced Qing Yuguan and enjoyed 10 years of glory in the Marquis' mansion. However, she was moved by the regret and heartache of the Hua family, and submitted to the court to win the title of princess. She became the only member of the capital's beautiful women, and thus entered the eyes of the royal family. She staged a touching love story with the male protagonist, the fifth prince, and won the envy and jealousy of the entire Deqian woman, he can truly be said to be a winner in life. A vivid life, just like this, passes by in a few strokes in the book. And Qing Yuguan, who was sent to Zhangzhou Prefecture from birth, naturally did not want to be taken away by the writer just to pave the way for the female lead. So she gave up convenient transportation and insisted on taking a carriage to Beijing. Just to rewrite one's own destiny. Who knew, he gave her a head blow as soon as he hit the road. In just 10 days, she had transformed from a tomboy wielding knives and guns in Zhangzhou Prefecture to a sick lady who was dizzy and unable to get up. If it goes on like this, there won't be any natural or man-made disasters. She can spit herself out on the path of the underworld. Feeling that he had reached his limit, Qing Yuguan cruelly took out the wallet from his arms and quickly threw it out of the carriage before Chen Mama and Kingle's little girl could react. "Ah, miss, are you feeling dizzy? Why are you throwing things out?" The little girl Kingle saw an apricot yellow purse curved in front of her, and was thrown out of the car window by the young lady, unable to help but exclaim in surprise. "There are no rules, what good things can there be that are worth shouting about?" Chen Mama's round face twisted its eyebrows at this moment, and she let out a stern, kingled sound. At the same time, her triangular eyes glanced at Qing Yuguan, and the malice in her eyes was not concealed. "Miss, please don't make any mistakes. Let's hurry back to the mansion. If you can't catch up with General Hua's return to court, you don't need to go back to Ho Mansion. You don't want to either, just spend your whole life in Zhangzhou Mansion, this rural land." Qing Yuguan swallowed the uncomfortable feeling of vomiting in his throat with a faint voice, but also with a hint of coldness. "In that purse just now, it was the last relic left by my mother. It was my grandfather's dowry for my mother. Do you think General Hua, my grandfather, will want to see my mother's relic and think of people? Otherwise, if you can find someone to go up and say it's my mother's daughter, General Hua can believe it." Qing Yuguan is gambling that this old devout woman dare not casually let the relics disappear. Upon hearing Qing Yuguan's words, Grandma Chen raised her eyes and said, You were born to suppress your family, and Lady Xian can still leave something for you. When you were sent away from the mansion, only Lady Xian's wet nurse held you in swaddling clothes, walking naked. Where can there be Lady Xian's relics? Over the years, even Lady Xian has been killed by you. I have packed all your bags when you entered Beijing. I don't know what you can have. Don't deceive us into parking and delay our trip." Right as she spoke, Chen Mama seemed to feel that she had just been deceived by Qing Yuguan, so she sat down calmly and said, "As for the recognition of the Hua family, there is no need for a token. When the young lady was in her hometown, she didn't look in the mirror, did she? Your black eyes are different from others. With these eyes that are consistent with the Hua family, there is no need for a token." Listening to Grandma Chen's words, the little girl Kingle no longer felt anxious, but looked at the uncomfortable young lady lying on the wall of the carriage, panting lightly. At this moment, Qing Yuguan closed his eyes and looked as if he was fearless. He whispered, "I reminded you, since you don't allow parking, when you arrive in the capital, if anyone asks about that wallet, I only say it's Grandma Chen's order. I don't care about that old object and it's hard to lose it." The little girl who said these words widened her eyes. She is the son of the family in the mansion, and her parents do rough work if they don't want to spoil her. She is just a maid who sweeps and scatters outside the courtyard. After being selected this time, Kingle came out with Chen Mama next to his wife, running back and forth, serving her with tea and water, never daring to disobey. The girl in front of her, who was about the same age as herself, was said to be a young lady, but she was dressed in old clothes and only had 2 small buns tied to her head with red cloth strips. She looked even more ordinary than herself, but dared to confront Chen Mama. This made Qinglu feel both envious and surprised. She didn't notice a few days ago that this approachable young lady could be so tough at times. Unlike the clear green starry eyes, Chen Mama's face was gloomy and she pondered for a long time before finally letting go. "Yu Liang, stop, Mrs. Things have fallen off," she said the sound was not loud, but the carriage stopped at the sound. The coachman stopped the carriage with Liang Lu. The front is Hafen Ridge, where there are rumors of bandits. It's better for us to stop after crossing Hafen Ridge, otherwise there might be danger. Chen Mama, do you really want to stop here? The driver's deep voice sounded outside the carriage. Listening to this voice, although it was just past noon, Qinglu's girl unconsciously shuddered. Mammy. Qinglu looked at Grandma Chen and shouted softly. What are you doing in a daze? Go down and look for something. Didn't you see the wallet that missed through just now? Go find it for me quickly, don't waste time. Chen Mama scolded, and Qinglu shrunk her neck. She quickly climbed off the carriage and went back and forth to find her purse. The carriage finally stopped, and Chen Yuguan lay on the carriage, taking a few deep breaths. Zhangzhou Prefecture is a hometown of martial arts. Chen Yuguan has only been taught by a grandmother since childhood, growing up like a wild child. Coupled with her tragic ending in the book, she is naturally unwilling to sit idly by and has practiced a few moves with the other villagers since childhood. Her three-legged martial arts, according to the head teacher of the clan, although not top-notch, are still in the mainstream, and if she goes out, she won't lose face with Zhangzhou Prefecture. Just now, she was just dizzy from the carriage, with a headache, chest tightness, and vomiting, so she looked very weak. At this moment, the carriage stopped, slowed down for a while, and Chen Yuguan felt that her body had fully recovered. Slowly calming his breath, Chen Yuguan felt that at this moment, the mountains and forests were surprisingly quiet. Turning her head, she saw that Chen Mama was no longer by her side at some point. Did you just go find the purse with Qinglu? Chen Yuguan thought for a moment, got up, and slowly lifted the curtain of the carriage. However, he saw that the coachman had disappeared for some time. At this moment, only the occasional sound of old crows in the forest sounded mournfully around. Apart from that, everything was quiet, and even her breathing was particularly pronounced. Chen Yuguan, who was born 13 years ago and grew up in his hometown of Qingjia village, couldn't help but feel a little anxious at this moment. She couldn't help but remember every time she wanted to explore and see the outside world, the tribal leader would say, the world outside is a world of the fittest. If you don't have enough power and manpower, you must have strong force. Otherwise, your small body will be captured by local ruffians and bandits and sold to the brothels and chuguan in minutes. Although the Qing marquis in the capital was the most prominent branch of the Qing family, they were ultimately granted the title of marquis with the support of their own martial arts practitioners from Zhangzhou Prefecture. So, the relationship between the capital marquis's mansion and the hometown of Qingjia village is complementary. In those years, a swaddling child of Chen Yuguan was sent back to his hometown by the marquis's house in the capital. The patriarch's family did not look at the face of the marquis's house and follow the bully, but took pity on her fatherless baby, helped Mammy raise her and let her grow up with her cousins. This time in Beijing, it was also a coincidence that the second cousin of the clan leader's family got married, and the wife of the eldest brother was about to give birth. Only 3 cousins without outdoor experience can be arranged for escort. Chen Yuguan doesn't want to take a ferry to Beijing because it's on the water and there's no place to escape if there's an accident. Chen Yuguan insisted on making a carriage, and Chen Mama took the opportunity to negotiate terms. She said that if the journey was long and she was not prepared, she would either take a boat or a carriage, and only one carriage would be available. She and Qinglu maid would personally serve her, and the 3 cousins escorted by her would not be able to travel together in the carriage. In all of the original work, Chen Yuguan ultimately chose to ride a carriage with Chen Mama into the capital and separate from the 3 escorted cousins. The 2 met in the capital. Thinking of a few days ago in Qingjia village, in front of the clan leader, the respectful and courteous Chen Mama, Chen Yuguan now only had a bitter smile. At this moment, she understood the words of the clan leader somewhat. When going out, if there is no reliance behind, one can only rely on their own strong military force. She has no relatives or support in the marquis's mansion, and Chen Mama is the stepwife's person. In front of the clan leader and relatives, she could still pretend and leave home. In front of her sickly girl, Chen Mama didn't even bother to pretend. Thinking about the increasingly impatient expression on Grandma Chen's face along the way, Chen Yuguan was in a dilemma at this moment. I shouldn't be separated from my cousin. It's all because I'm too confident and think I can handle an old lady and a little girl with force, so I easily separated from my cousin. Now I'm alone, not in the village in front of me, not in the store in the back. The grandmother next to me is also someone who can disguise herself. She used to be respectful and polite a few days ago, but now she shows a fierce face. I'm afraid there may be some unknown danger waiting for me ahead. Chen Yuguan picked up the whip from the carriage, hesitating whether to leave or stay. Leaving, she was a woman alone, and even when she arrived in the capital, rumors could not be stopped. If you don't leave, will you let Grandma Chen calculate? At the turn of spring and summer, there were gusts of cool breeze in the forest, blowing the solemn expression of Yuguan and the sound of knowing and pondering. The sound of rustling in the wilderness made Qing Yu care for the next tightening, and the whip in his hand was struck hard. Herod, the horse was in pain, and with the carriage and Qing Yuguan on the carriage, they galloped together. Qing Yuguan is in Qingjia village, as if she has been forgotten by her family. She relies on her grandmother and lives a simple life. She often follows her grandmother to work, so naturally she is not a delicate young lady who knows nothing. Damn it, don't let her run away, hurry up. As soon as the carriage started running, 3 or 5 big men emerged from the bushes on both sides of the forest, behind the trees, and ran to chase the carriage. Little girl, why don't you stop now? After a while, the carriage overturned and broke your neck. Why don't you go with our men? At least there are still a few years of happy life for you. Do you hear me? Stop it. If you don't stop, wait for us to catch up and make you unable to survive or die. The louder the threatening voices behind him, the tighter Qing Yuguan's grip on the reins became. As she drove the carriage, she turned around to see that the road in the forest was difficult to walk and she couldn't distance herself from those vicious bandits. Qing Yuguan released one hand and touched the dagger in her arms. It was given to her by her third cousin for self-defense. If she had to, she would only see blood today. Seeing the bandits behind him getting closer and closer, Qing Yuguan's dagger saw blood on the horse first. The horse suffered from pain and rushed forward with the carriage, causing the carriage frame to start shaking and almost falling apart. Finally, the horse led the carriage and Qing Yuguan out of the jungle and arrived at a grassy area under the mountain wall. The people behind could only curse but feel helpless when they saw the carriage driving out of the forest. The carriage ran even faster after leaving the forest. At this moment, several big men suddenly appeared on the mountain road beside the mountain wall in front of them. Judging by their appearance and attire, they seemed to be even more professional than the big men behind them. They didn't even wear short clothes, and their hair was short-shaved, with their scalp exposed and their upper body bare. They were only wearing a coarse cloth vest, with red eyes and rough faces. They were also very panicked and they saw Qing Yuguan's carriage, and after the panic, they were overjoyed. Brothers, there's a carriage here. Hurry up and grab it. Signed, please recommend, follow up, and review. Let's work together to make this book more accessible to more people. Thank you all. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Encounter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Encounter. The carriage was galloping with pain, but the bandits on the opposite side did not dodge and rushed straight towards the carriage, their eyes showing excitement and madness. Stop. Do you hear me? Little girl, if you don't stop, you'll have to survive or die in a moment. The bandits in front were also full of threats, and the sharp voice made Qing Yu care about the next level, hitting the horse's buttocks heavily with a whip. As they were about to collide head-on with the horse, the bandit on the opposite side skillfully dodged and reached out to grab the reins of the horse. After running a few steps with the horse, he flipped over and rode onto its back. Judging from his skillful appearance, he should not be an ordinary bandit who has become a bandit, but rather someone with some martial arts skills. Qing Yuguan watched helplessly as the bandit subdued the horse, and the whip in his hand was useless. It seems that the galloping road just now has exhausted the horse's stamina. Xintiandi, you're not afraid, come down here. Qing Yuguan was pulled down from the carriage by the bandits who came from behind. The tremendous force, like a doll, pulled her down and threw her onto the road. Qing Yuguan held the dagger on his chest and dared not move it recklessly. Boss, this little girl looks pretty. Let's take it with us. Not only can we relax on the road, but we can also sell it for money when we get to the next town. A greasy man with glowing eyes looked at Qing Yuguan lying on the roadside and said. When is this? The carriage is just so big, and it needs to be burdensome again. Are you not going to die? Get in the carriage and leave quickly. The person who subdued the horse stopped his subordinates. The subordinate was a bit reluctant to give up on the gains he had received, hesitating to get on the car and still fighting. How many times hasn't our Black Wind village been suppressed in a year? Isn't it okay after we pass by? Besides, we ran away from the side road first, and the officers and soldiers are still suppressing bandits on the mountain, and they can't find us. Okay, you stay and make room for that little girl. Seeing that the boss seemed impatient, the man quickly got into the carriage and ignored the little lady lying on the roadside. No more, no more. Leave the Green Mountains here, don't worry about not having firewood to burn. Let's go quickly. The sound of the carriage wheels gradually faded away, and Qing Yuguan finally dared to take a breath, burying his head on the roadside. God bless me. People who have never believed in Buddhism can't help but thank God after the powerless experience just now. Her hands and feet were a bit weak from fear, and Qing Yuguan lay on her stomach for a while before gradually regaining strength. She sat up with her body propped up. Due to the discomfort of vomiting from the dizzy carriage, Qing Yuguan had not dared to eat for over a day. After another heart-wrenching experience just now, she only felt a weak feeling of hunger spreading from her stomach to her whole body. After calming down, Qing Yuguan got up and equipped himself to walk towards the mountains. Didn't those bandits just say there were officers and soldiers to suppress them? It's better to find officers and soldiers in this wilderness than to be alone, right? Not far away, another shout came, little girl, don't run. Qing Yuguan turned around, but the person who was the first to chase the carriage just now chased after him again. Originally, they had just seen the bandits and hid. Now, seeing the carriage running away, they came searching again. Seeing Qing Yuguan alone, he did not retreat from the bandits just now and chased after him loudly. Whoever doesn't run is a fool. Qing Yuguan saw the 3 or 5 big men following behind him with a lingering spirit, and quickly ran forward desperately. Hurry up and stop, do you hear me? Stop now, guys, be happy and don't want your life. If you don't stop, let us catch up and be careful of your little life. The big man behind him chased after him and threatened, his fearless and ferocious appearance was disgusting. Qing Yuguan accelerated his pace again and never let himself fall into the hands of that group of people. Haifengling is a mountain range with only one rugged mountain road available for passage. On the right side of the mountain road is a steep cliff, and on the left side is a cliff. Qing Yuguan can only run hard on this mountain road. She grew up in Qingjia village and practiced martial arts from a young age. She ran at a slow pace, making it difficult for people behind her to catch up. But those few big men were not in a hurry, so they let Qing Yuguan run desperately. They were like cats playing with mice, falling from a distance. I want to see when you're feeling down. When you're feeling down, let's see how we deal with you. Someone behind me joked. Qing Yuguan didn't dare to relax after listening and ran forward desperately. I couldn't stop feeling the smell of blood in my throat. When Qing Yuguan was running for his life, he couldn't help but laugh at himself in his previous life when he couldn't help but think about his 800-meter test. At that time, the first round was running hard, and the second round was starting to lose momentum. If he had the current hard work, he wouldn't have been unable to pass. As if after a long time, Qing Yuguan's eyes turned black. After not eating for over a day, she couldn't hold on anymore. Is that too much energy? Run, you keep running. It seemed as if Qing Yuguan's speed had slowed down, and the big man behind him sneered, not forgiving anyone, and his speed kept up with him. Feeling that the pursuers behind her were getting closer and closer, Qing Yuguan's eyes looked left and right. If she couldn't get rid of it, she could only jump down and let fate take its course. It's better to live than to die. We don't want your life, so you better stop now. Seemingly seeing Qing Yuguan looking for a way out, the people behind joked. The person behind him seemed like an evil spirit that could not be rid of. Qing Yuguan's legs and feet were getting heavier and heavier, and he was about to be caught up. With his eyes closed, Qing Yuguan fiercely jumped down the steep slope to the right. But it didn't matter, the big man chasing behind him was already very close to Qing Yuguan. Seeing that she was about to jump down, he quickly took 2 steps and stepped forward, blocking his waist to embrace Qing Yuguan and throwing him onto the nearby mountain wall. Qing Yuguan covered his sore waist and stared at the several big men chasing after him. Compared to the greasy bandits just now, although they also dressed similarly, they were more refreshing. You must also be careful when pretending to be bandits. Those heroes just now had short shaved hair and exposed scalp. Your attire is not like that. Qing Yuguan said coldly. The man in charge, who was in his 30s or 40s, was dressed in brown shorts and had his hair wrapped in cloth. When he heard Qing Yuguan's words, he laughed out loud as he undressed and said, "Miss is intelligent. As long as Miss is obedient, we don't want Miss's life. Hee, Li Gu, you go first, brothers, line up at the back." The big man behind him smiled and stared at Qing Yuguan Road, his eyes greasy and disgusting. Feeling the foul breath in his ear, Qing Yuguan, who had been mocked all the way, suddenly pulled out the hidden dagger and used all his strength to thrust it out. Ah! You! The big man who pounced on Qing Yuguan was stabbed in the abdomen by Qing Yuguan, and turned over and collapsed to the side with a mournful cry. The big man behind him no longer looked eager and greasy, but rushed forward, one by one, controlling Qing Yuguan's hands and pressing her against the mountain wall. "Brotherly, how are you? Is it okay?" The man looked at his head, who was covering his waist and abdomen, and his face instantly turned pale. "Don't worry about me, you fight quickly and make a quick decision. After taking away this little girl's innocence, let's hurry and leave." Unexpectedly, at this point, Li Gu still refuses to let go of the process of Yuguan. The dagger was taken down, and Qing Yuguan looked at the several big men in front of him and couldn't help but close his eyes. What is despair and powerlessness? At this moment, Qing Yuguan finally realized. Despite being a young lady from the Marquis's mansion and having a great-grandfather in the army, she was a woman who was being trampled on by others in this rural area, even though she had to look at her grandmother's face. Even if she grew up practicing martial arts and writing to change her destiny, what would happen? She was stained with innocence and became a stain on the Marquis's mansion, and the Cheng and Hui families no longer had her place to stand. Her female lead sister is still the apple of the eye of both families. And she is the bitter female companion who cannot compete for her life. Her existence only paves the way for the female lead. This ending made Qing Yuguan, who had been living for 13 years, feel that his past 13 years were just a joke. No matter how hard you struggle and try your best to avoid repeating the same mistakes, isn't it even worse than the ending in the book? In a moment of despair, Qing Yuguan's mind went from powerlessness, regret, to rising from unwillingness to anger. In this moment, it seemed that Shangnai had heard her inner voice, and fate came to her. A sound of hooves echoed, interrupting the voices of several big men. Qing Yuguan also opened his eyes in an instant and looked over with hope. On the other side of the narrow mountain road, a group of people and horses appeared vaguely, wearing armor, with flags and banners raised, with a black background and a white dragon pattern on it. Li Gu, he is the fourth prince. Li Gu glanced at Qing Yuguan, and the cloth wrapped around the wound leached blood. Let's go. Brother Li. Where is Uncle Cheng? It's okay, we haven't done anything yet. Even if we get caught, it's not a big deal. Let's go. In the blink of an eye, several big men jumped down the steep mountain slope. Qing Yuguan saw the situation and quickly shouted out. Help! There are bandits. The soldiers on the other side of the mountain road heard a sound and quickly turned around to run over. Who are you and why did you appear at Haifengling? The soldier pointed his spear at Qing Yuguan and asked a small flag. Qing Yuguan pointed to the steep slope on the opposite side and said, just now there was a bandit robbery. I heard the sound of the soldier coming over, so I jumped down and ran. At this moment, looking down the steep slope, there were still a few faint figures. Follow me. Seeing the soldiers chasing after him, Qing Yuguan breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the soldiers rushing out from the other side. He exclaimed loudly, I am Qing Yuguan, the miss of the Marquis's mansion. On my way back to Beijing, I encountered bandits. If anyone can escort me to the capital, I will definitely thank you very much after I return to the Marquis's mansion. The soldiers couldn't help but look at each other as if the woman they met in the mountains and fields had this background. At this moment, horses separated and soldiers came over from behind. The rider sat high on the horse and saw that although Qing Yuguan's hair was messy, his clothes were still neat. After throwing the cloak behind him to Qing Yuguan, he looked down at him from a high position. Are you the miss of Marquis Cheng's mansion? Qing Yuguan wrapped himself in a cloak and took out the jade pendant. On the carriage, she threw out an empty purse, and the jade pendant in her arms was the real relic left by her mother. She held up the jade pendant and said, My father, Marquis Cheng, and mother, Hua Jingyu, these are the jade pendants of the Hua family's dowry, which can prove my identity. Someone took the jade pendant and sent it back to the back of the soldiers. There seemed to be some important person there who could make decisions. Qing Yuguan followed the figure on horseback and looked behind the soldiers. Through the woods and banners, she seemed to see a figure in black clothes glancing in her direction. After a moment, the man rode back and dismounted to return the jade pendant to Qing Yuguan. His face no longer showed a cold and stern expression, Miss, where is the servant served by the Qing family? But he got separated. Where did he get separated? I will send someone to retrieve it from you and escort you back to the capital. Qing Yuguan shook his head and said, I'm afraid they've all encountered an unexpected situation. You just need to give me a horse, and I'll stay with you in the team. I won't drag you all down. When you successfully suppress the bandits and return to Beijing, I'll go with you. This time, my grandfather, General Hua, will win and return to court, and he wants to meet me. They are all members of the military. In the face of my grandfather, I believe adults can meet my request, right? After a series of encounters just now, Qing Yuguan didn't want to follow Grandma Chen back to the capital. Even if there were bandits just now, those people were definitely fake bandits, just to tarnish their own innocence. In this way, after returning to the capital, she not only gave the Hua family an explanation, but also posed no threat to the people of the Qing family. A woman who has lost her virginity will not have any respect or human rights except for committing suicide. Is this kind of her the most in line with some people's expectations? Faced with Qing Yuguan's request, the person came back to report again before finally letting go. Today the suppression of bandits in Haifeng Fortress has come to an end, and tomorrow we will leave the camp and return to Beijing. The conditions in the army are poor, so since Miss wants to follow, please forgive me. Qing Yuguan had already recovered at this moment, got up and tied her cloak tightly. The cloak of others dragged a large part of her body, tightly wrapping her around. Qing Yuguan used a dagger to cut open the hem of the mopping floor, tore it off, and then arched his hand to look at the person in front of him. Thank you very much, benefactor. I dare to ask the benefactor's name. After returning to the capital, there will be a report. The man waved his hand and said, I am Lin Jing. The one who allowed you to follow into the capital is our lord, the fourth prince. If you want to thank him, just thank him when you go back. Alright, there's no need to be polite outside. Here's the horse for you. Can you leave now? Qing Yuguan took the reins of the horse, comforted the horse a few times, and then flew onto the horse. Although Qingjia village is not as wealthy as the Marquis' mansion in the capital, it is not an ordinary village. Poor in culture and rich in martial arts, the entire Qingjia village practices martial arts, and naturally there are also many horses. In addition to practicing martial arts at Qingyu Pass, he naturally knows how to ride horses. Lin Jing nodded and followed Qing Yuguan on his horse, saying, Let's go, follow me for now. Qing Yuguan nodded, now there is finally a way out. Following behind Lin Jing all the way, we arrived at the nearby Jixin County. Miss Cheng, Chen Mama and the maid carriage driver from the Marquis' mansion have come. Please come over, fourth prince. Late at night, after dinner, Qing Yuguan was taking a shower and changing clothes, preparing to rest when suddenly a soldier came to report. Upon hearing this, Qing Yuguan couldn't help but sneer. She narrowly escaped death, while Chen Mama and Kingolf, the old and young, were unharmed. He took a deep breath and said, I understand. Upon arriving at the main hall, Qing Yuguan saw the expressionless coachman with a face full of joy, as well as the worried Chen Mama. Of course, there was also the fourth prince sitting on top with an expressionless face. Miss, you're okay, that's great. Kingolf pounced with surprise. Signed, please recommend, follow up, and review. Let's work together to make this book more accessible to more people. Thank you all. End of this chapter. 3, Chapter 3 Disputes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Disputes. Miss, it's great if you're okay. Chen Mama also followed Qinglu to the side of Qing Yuguan and stood in front of him. With one hand firmly grasping Qing Yuguan's arm, the other hand pressed the corner of his eye with a handkerchief. Mrs. Purse was thrown out of the carriage. We just need to find a purse. If we come back, we will see that the carriage is also missing, and miss, you are also missing. Madam and Marquis are waiting for you to go back in the mansion. If you have any unexpected problems, how can I explain them to Madam when I go back? Chen Mama was dressed in brown long accessories, with neat hair, adorned with a golden hairpin. Her plump round face was now filled with worry, as if a grandmother had cherished her granddaughter, complaining and crying. Qing Yuguan, however, remained expressionless and grabbed Chen Mama's hand as he struggled to remove it. With her back facing the fourth prince, Chen Mama's expression became tense for a moment, and she looked sorrowful again. I know that the young lady grew up in her ancestral home and complained about the Marquis' mansion in her heart. This is because I, as a servant, was not thoughtful enough. I shouldn't let the young lady stay on the carriage alone and search for her purse. Miss, you have to blame me. After returning to the Marquis' mansion, I will apologize to the Marquis and his wife on my own, whether to beat, scold, or leave the mansion. I won't have a word of complaint. I only hope that the young lady won't be separated from the mansion because of this. After all, the Marquis' mansion has arranged a ship to pick her up, and the young lady insists on taking the carriage and the journey. Hurry, it's the old servant who didn't arrange it properly. Miss, you have to blame me, just this old lady. As she spoke, her mournful cries grew louder, and Kingolf beside her, who was not sure why, also followed Chen Mama in tears. It's really a dereliction of duty for us as servants to surprise the young lady. But after all, Grandma Chen is an old lady in the mansion who has served the Marquis. When several young ladies and gentlemen in the mansion meet, they all want to say hello. She has been following you all day and hasn't even eaten a few bites of food. Don't blame her. She's so old, and if something happens, it won't be easy for the young lady to explain when she returns to the mansion. The coachman no longer had the indifferent look of the day, standing on the other side of Grandma Chen with a look of heartache and self-blame. In the quiet hall, only these three servants wept and admitted their mistakes. Qing Yuguan looked at them quietly and then looked around. At the pillars on both sides of the house, butter candles were lit, and the flames flickered. The fourth prince sat on a circular chair, looking down to play with the teacups in his hand, his expression dim and unclear. Wearing black clothes, it was late at night, with only a palace belt tied around the Taoist robe, hair tied without a hat, and hair tied with ivory hairpins. It was a bit more casual and less oppressive than during the day. Beside him stood Lin Jing, who was delivering a cloak to Qing Yuguan during the day. She was dressed in a neat narrow-sleeved robe, tied with a palace belt, and looked even more capable and upright. The two indifferent faces of the master and servant, who were in the same lineage, seemed to have not seen the tears of Chen Mama and the three of them, nor heard the accusations they had made. Qing Yuguan turned his head and looked around. The hall was very spacious and seemed to be the government office of Ji County. The four pillars supported the hall, and the fourth prince sat with his head up. The guards below stood in front of the pillars on both sides, with dark standard guard clothes hidden in the candlelight. Their faces were cold and solemn, expressionless. Qing Yuguan turned his head and looked around again at the three people in front of him. There is no audience again, so let's not perform this play by Grandma Chen here. It's a waste of effort. Let's do it again when we return to the Marquis's mansion and go to the people we want to see. As soon as Qing Yuguan uttered these words, there was a sobbing sound in the hall. The fourth prince, who was in charge, stopped playing with the teacup. Lin Jing couldn't help but look up and glanced at Qing Yuguan. Some baby girls are fat and childish, carrying water vapor from bathing and wearing white family jackets and skirts. They look harmless to humans and animals, but unexpectedly, their mouths are as merciless as knives. Kingle in front of her was so embarrassed that she couldn't cry anymore. Chen Mama is a bit old and spicy, and she doesn't feel angry when faced with others. She no longer pretends to wipe away the tears that no longer exist by pressing the corners of her eyes, but puts down her hand and turns to glance at the fourth prince. With a dry smile, she said, in front of the fourth prince, "Miss, don't be stubborn. This is not the rural area of Qing family village. You are the miss of Qing Marquis's mansion, and every word and action represents the Marquis's mansion. You need to have a proper face. If you have any complaints, let's go back and talk. We've been bothering the fourth prince for a long time today, let's go back first and let him rest earlier." As she spoke, Grandma Chen stepped forward and grabbed one arm of Qing Yuguan, facing the fourth prince. "Your Highness, thank you very much for your help today. We will go down now. When we return to the Marquis's mansion, I will definitely report to the Marquis and his wife. Thank you very much for your help." The fourth prince then raised his head and glanced at Qing Yuguan first. "Thank you, it's just a simple gesture," he said. "Your Highness is generous, and we must also be polite. Miss, you have been frightened today. Let's go back and rest." As he spoke, he exerted force on his hand and was about to take Qing Yuguan back. How could Qing Yuguan possibly be with these three people again? Today, those disguised mountain bandits come from unknown backgrounds, and with suspicious people, the enemy is dark and we are clear, calculating without intention. Even if Qing Yuguan doesn't close his eyes day and night, he can't be peaceful. Qing Yuguan forcefully withdrew his arm and took a few steps closer to the fourth prince. "If you're tired, go rest." During the day, the fourth prince sent someone to chase after those bandits. "I'll stay and ask for more information. Also," Qing Yuguan said, looking at Grandma Chen, "you only brought one coachman and one maid when you left the mansion this time. In order to avoid repeating the same fate as today, I'm planning to go to the capital with the fourth prince and his delegation. How can this work?" Chen Mama blurted out, as if to avoid embarrassment, and explained, "The fourth prince has always been strict in leading troops and has official duties. As a daughter, you can't withstand military constraints. Besides, it's inconvenient, isn't it? The fourth prince has saved the miss, and the miss should not seek revenge or burden his highness. Chen Mama never thought that a teenage rural girl would be so difficult to deal with. In the past, when she was in the mansion, those newly bought little girls were under her control. They were all obedient, even talking big, and the few illegitimate young ladies in the mansion were always respectful in front of her and would not refute her in person. The repeated confrontations at Qingyuguan have already made Chen Mama, who was already impatient, feel uneasy. Seeing Qingyuguan unable to understand, she has almost spoken openly. Qingyuguan still shook his head and said, "I don't know what dignity Chen Mama has in the mansion, but after going through this bandit incident today, I can't trust you. Instead of following you on the road and facing unknown dangers, I would rather follow the fourth prince." After speaking, Qingyuguan looked at the fourth prince and bowed with his fists like Lin Jing. "I will definitely abide by military discipline, follow the army closely, and not burden your highness. Please allow me, your highness." Chen Mama might as well not give Qingyuguan any face, and listen to the fourth prince's righteous pursuit of those mountain bandits. She is both anxious and angry, and no longer pretends. She takes a step forward and grabs Qingyuguan's arm. "Your highness, this child is used to being wild in the countryside and doesn't understand anything. The old servant will take her away now and no longer disturb your highness." As he spoke, he was about to pull Qingyuguan away with force in his hand. Qingyuguan was too lazy to listen to Chen Mama's entanglement anymore. With the other hand, she lifted her finger and in an instant, Chen Mama screamed out in agony, "My hand is broken. Your highness, please help me. Liangqing, Kingolf, are you two dead? Why don't you stop the young lady?" Only then did the two of them react and quickly move forward to separate. With the fourth prince present, Qingyuguan was confident and kicked everyone aside one by one. Without waiting for Chen Mama to make any more noise, they ran straight towards the fourth prince. Lin Jing wanted to intervene and stop Qingyuguan, but was blocked by the fourth prince. Qingyuguan took the opportunity to run behind the fourth prince and said with grievance, "Fourth prince, look, I've had a falling out with them. They said Marquis Qing sent me to the capital to meet my grandfather, but only these few people secretly threw me into a bandit's den on the way. If I go with them again, in case something goes wrong, your highness won't bear it, will he?" The fourth prince watched a scene and now he put down the teacup in his hand. If Qingyuguan doesn't say anything and follows Chen Mama and a few others, then if anything happens in the future, it has nothing to do with him. But now Qingyuguan is determined to follow him. If he refuses and allows a few people from the Marquis's mansion to leave, he will also bear the responsibility if there are any accidents. "All right, stop pulling. Chen, if you don't protect the Lord well, you still have the face to take Miss Qing on the road. If there is another accident, your life may not be able to bear it." With the fourth prince's words, Chen Mama no longer howled. In the mansion, she dared to cry, make trouble, and hang herself. In front of the renowned fourth prince, she dared not make any more fuss. "Miss is stubborn, I can't stop you, so I have to trouble your highness. After returning to the capital, my wife will definitely give me a generous gift," she said, feeling disheartened as she spoke. Grandma Chen led the two of them out of the hall. The hall instantly cleared up. Seeing Chen Mama leave, Qingyuguan finally breathed a sigh of relief and left behind the fourth prince. He walked up to the fourth prince and respectfully bowed, "Thank you for the fourth prince's help. Yuguan will definitely repay you in the future." After finishing speaking, Qingyuguan also understood and stopped bothering, preparing to return to his room. "I have to tell you that those bandits had already committed suicide when they caught up, and their bodies were in the backyard firewood room. If you want to go and check, you can do so." Although Qingyuguan knew there would be no consequences, he was still shocked by the passing of several lives in the blink of an eye. Is this the Marquis's mansion? Standing tall, so considering human life as worthless. For the first time in his life, several fresh lives were lost due to him. Qingyuguan suppressed his fear and said, "Prince Xie, I'm going to the backyard firewood house right now. Qing Yuguan wants to see it with his own eyes. Zhao Cheng, take Miss Cheng to the backyard. Qing Yuguan followed the detached guards out of the hall. Inside, Lin Jing finally spoke at this moment. Your Highness, as the saying goes, it is difficult for a clean official to handle household affairs. How did you make an exception this time? General Hua's victory and return to court cannot make General Hua feel cold. The fourth prince's voice was faint. Lin Jing finally understood. Mrs. Hua was General Hua's most beloved youngest daughter back then. It is said that when Miss Cheng was born and killed her mother, the Hua family also vented their anger on her granddaughter. Now, it seems that time has changed, and she is thinking of her granddaughter again. It is true that her bloodline is connected and cannot be cut off. Qing Yuguan did not hear Lin Jing and the fourth prince's words, and she had already arrived outside the firewood room. Open the door. Zhao Qing instructed the guards outside the firewood house. Taking a glance at Qing Yuguan, whose face was full of immaturity, she couldn't help but remind him, Miss Cheng, they all died from poisoning, in a tragic state. Please be mentally prepared. Qing Yuguan turned his head to look at Zhao Cheng and nodded in gratitude for his concern. It's okay, they have a connection with me at all. I'll just go in and take a look to feel at ease, he said after speaking. Qing Yuguan resolutely walked into the firewood room. A few corpses were placed in front of Qing Yuguan in such a desolate manner. Their ashen faces, as well as the deep brown solidified blood left at the corners of their eyes and mouths, added a touch of unwillingness and desolation to the corpses. The faint smell of the corpse and the greasy diamond-like nose of Yuguan made her instantly nauseous. Miss Cheng. It's okay. Qing Yuguan waved his hand, enduring the nausea and greasiness in his chest, and walked forward to carefully examine the faces of several people. During the day, they brought her fear and regret, almost ruining her innocence. Now they are lying quietly here. This huge contrast made Qing Yu care about the sharp rise, causing shock, anger. The terrifying affordability of human life. Who is she going to face soon? The means are so ruthless, treating human life like grass. Do you really want to enter that cruel arena? Qing Yuguan couldn't help but think, if she gave up and returned to Qing family village, would the people behind the scenes let her go? The answer is no. Since my grandfather's victory and return to court, the blessings he carried have been targeted by people. Qing Yuguan, as the only granddaughter of her maternal grandfather, did not receive any honors or blessings that she could simply refuse. The person behind the scenes is going to take away her blessings and transfer them to her own person. Only if she loses her innocence, is despised by the Hua family, or dies, can the people behind the scenes stop. So, this is not for Qing Yuguan to choose whether to enter the capital or compete for his own blessings. But now she is standing at the tip of the wind and waves, a mistake is irreversible. There is no way back. Knowing that he could only move forward without a retreat, Qing Yuguan's heart immediately rose with uncontrollable anger. Since she had no choice, she had to hold on to her original blessings and interrupt the people behind the scenes from their plans and dreams. Zhao Qing saw Miss Cheng with a complex expression on her face. She thought she couldn't bear it, but she didn't. Miss Cheng took out a dagger from her arms with lightning speed and fiercely chopped it at the wrist of one of the corpses. One hand of the corpse broke off in response. Ordinary women have no strength in their hands and cannot bear it, so they can cause wounds to the body at most, but they will not be easily cut off like this. Zhao Qing stepped forward in surprise, opened Qing Yuguan, looked at Miss Cheng's face, and then at the dagger in her hand, with a serious expression on her face. Qing Yuguan took out a handkerchief and wiped the blood off the dagger. Because it was a corpse, there were not too many bloodstains on the dagger. Quickly, Qing Yuguan wiped the dagger clean and looked up at Zhao Qing. Zhao, I'm causing you trouble. I've already seen the person who tried to insult me during the day. It's getting late, I'll go back first. After speaking, Chen Yuguan walked towards the room with a stiff face. Zhao Qing stood still, watching Chen Yuguan walk away, and then glanced at the hand that had fallen to the ground. Your Highness, Miss Cheng has returned to her room and is vomiting profusely. Zhao Qing returned to the main room. Go on a mission with your Highness. At Chen Yuguan's place, the aftermath of fainting from the carriage had completely disappeared, and at that moment, she only felt the invasion of her senses. The faint smell of corpses, as well as the sharp feeling of cutting her wrist into her flesh, made her feel so uncomfortable that she could no longer withstand it, almost spitting it out more severely than fainting for 10 days in a carriage. Signed, please recommend, follow up, and review. Let's work together to make this book more accessible to more people. Thank you all. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Return Trip. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Return Trip. Miss, it's getting hotter and hotter on this day. The sun is bright and there are many mosquitoes and insects in the mountains. You'd better take a carriage back. Otherwise, the journey will be windy and frosty. When General Hui sees him in the capital, won't he feel heartbroken? Early the next morning, the fourth prince set off from camp at the entrance of the county government office. In front of everyone, Chen Mama had already put away her previous night's embarrassment and anger. She gently called out to Chen Yuguan, lifted the curtain of the carriage, and let her get on the carriage. That gentle expression made the fourth prince and others follow suit. Chen Yuguan glanced at the expressions of the people around him and couldn't help but want to laugh. People are like this, always easily moved by the surface gentleness. If she showed a cold face at this moment, Grandma Chen would probably be even more subdued to highlight her stubbornness. Chen Mama is actually getting old. When I was chased by bandits yesterday, you couldn't save me, and now you have a bad memory. Don't you forget how uncomfortable I have been in the carriage for the past 10 days. Now that I'm finally getting better, why do I have to ride the carriage again? I said earlier that the mansion didn't arrange for me, and there were no extra horses for me. Not riding the carriage is not enough. Today, we are following the fourth prince, and there are plenty of war horses. So, you should ride the carriage. I grew up in the countryside and I'm not that delicate. I'll ride the carriage back with the fourth prince. Chen Yuguan's cold words made it clear to those around him. The Chengho mansion is also one of the few households in the capital, usually wealthy and prestigious, yet so stingy towards the young lady in the mansion. To pick up someone, just send a grandmother, a maid, and a carriage over. Even a wealthy family in the capital would not be so shabby. Miss Cheng has been complaining about herself and has been vomiting for about 10 days. If we take the carriage back again, won't we lose half of our lives? The people in the military are more straightforward, regardless of their intentions. They don't pay much attention to Chen Yuguan's cold tone and attitude, but rather have some glances at Chen Mama, who appears gentle but harbors hidden dangers. Chen Mama was mocked by Chen Yuguan, and when she saw the cold faces of the fourth prince and everyone else, she didn't dare to entangle anymore and climbed the wall in a gloomy carriage. Chen Mama had already made up her mind yesterday that Chen Yuguan should not be allowed to follow the fourth prince's entourage. Although the fourth prince has a cold face, his status is still noble. If given the opportunity to interact with Chen Yuguan and the fourth prince, it is difficult to guarantee that there will be no unnecessary complications. Therefore, despite the hardships of the march, she still had to follow the fourth prince and monitor their every move, and ensure that they did not have any additional contact. As Chen Mama climbed onto the carriage, Kingle chuckled foolishly at Chen Yuguan, her eyes dodging and afraid to look at the fully armed guards. She then climbed onto the carriage as well. Without any noise, Chen Yuguan flipped over and mounted the horse given to her by Lin Jing's guard, following the large army back to the capital behind the fourth prince. Marching is bitter. In the wilderness, following the official road, one can walk for over 2 hours. Chen Yuguan doesn't have a map, doesn't know the destination, just feels like the road in front of him has no end, Miss Cheng, if you feel dizzy, you can come down for a walk. Many people feel uncomfortable during their first march, and even the soldiers below need to train for a long time to adapt. Zhao Cheng, who had an intersection yesterday, drove his horse to Qing Yuguan and said, "A man without exercise can't bear the hardships of marching, let alone a young lady like Qing Yuguan." He was afraid that Miss Cheng would not be able to come down from the stage after speaking harshly to Grandma, so he came over specifically to give her a step down. "Thank you very much for Brother Zhao's kindness." Qing Yuguan also knew the good or bad, so he specially thanked Zhao Qing first. Zhao Qing quickly waved his hand and said, "Miss Cheng, you're welcome. You can call me Zhao Qingqing." Qing Yuguan arched his hand and said, "I grew up in the countryside with my cousins since I was young, and there weren't so many details. Brother Zhao Qing kindly gave me some guidance, so why bother calling you big brother?" Zhao Qing's face showed a smile, and Qing Yuguan continued, "I haven't been pampered since I was young. Now that the fourth prince has kindly asked me to come back to the capital with him, I naturally can't hold back His Highness. Although it's a bit uncomfortable right now, I can still persevere. It's still far from the capital. The earlier I exercise, the more I can keep up with His Highness's pace and not drag him down." Seeing that Qing Yuguan's face had turned blue and he still insisted on not dismounting, and hearing Qing Yuguan's words again, Zhao Qing stopped persuading him. Everyone has their own difficulties. Zhao Qing was in the capital and had been with His Highness for many years. If he didn't gain power, he would have faced even more difficulties than ordinary people. Even if Miss Cheng is the legitimate daughter of the Marquis family, it can be seen from Chen Mama and others that her future return to Beijing will probably be difficult. Eating more hardship right now may not necessarily be a bad thing. Therefore, Zhao Qing stopped persuading and took out the golden wound medicine from his pocket, handing it to Qing Yuguan. "This is the golden wound medicine that Your Highness has prepared for us. Its efficacy is very good, please keep it." Qing Yuguan took the porcelain vase and put it in his arms. "Thank you very much, Brother Zhao, and thank you very much, Your Highness." Upon hearing this, Zhao Qing drove his horse away and headed forward. At this moment, Qing Yuguan controlled his horse and followed behind the guard team. He breathed a sigh of relief, gritted his teeth, endured the pain in his inner thighs, and continued on his journey. From morning until dusk, except for the half-hour meal at noon, Qing Yuguan dismounted and eased for a while. For the rest of the time, Qing Yuguan gritted his teeth and grabbed the reins of the horse, refusing to come down. Set up camp. With a shout of peace from Lin Jing, Qing Yuguan no longer held on, his strength relaxed, and he slid down from his horse. "Miss Cheng, are you okay?" Zhao Qing had been paying attention behind him intentionally or unintentionally, and upon seeing this, he quickly came over to give a virtual support. Qing Yuguan held on to the saddle in his hand to support his body, unable to even speak. He just waved his hand to show that he was okay. "Later, I will have the kitchen staff boil a pot of hot water for the young lady, and the young lady will soak and hydrolyze it to relieve fatigue." Qing Yuguan, whether in his past or present life, although not wealthy or pampered, has never suffered a crime. Even in Qingjia village, there used to be a nursing mother, but later there was a family leader who loved her. She only suffered some hardships and never suffered. Today is the day of the horse, and Qing Yuguan only feels that his waist is broken, his legs are numb, and the pain on the inside of his thighs is no longer felt. Just as he was feeling unwell, someone came to comfort him. At this moment, Qing Yuguan felt tears almost falling down. She secretly sniffed and stopped the tears that were about to fall. It would be embarrassing if she shed tears because of hard work at the moment. Therefore, Qing Yuguan half lowered his head and didn't let Brother Zhao see his red circles. "Thank you, Brother Zhao, I know now," he said. Zhao Cheng's weak crown has passed and he is almost 10 years older than Qing Yuguan. Looking at Qing Yuguan pretending to be okay in front of him, how could he not hear her with a nasal tone in her voice? However, although he had known Qing Yuguan for a short time, he knew that Qing Yuguan was someone who wanted to save face. He didn't expose it and only pointed to the temporary tent built nearby. "That's the tent that your highness ordered to set up for you. The hot water is inside, and you can go there in a moment," he said. "Well, I got it, brother Zhao." Qing Yuguan secretly opened his eyes wide, suppressed his tears, and looked at Zhao Qing in front of him with a smile. Zhao Qing saw a smile on Qing Yuguan's face, but his eyes were moist. He just nodded and turned around to leave. "Miss, the maidservants have been busy all day and are very tired, so we can't serve you anymore. We need to go back and rest first, so as not to miss the fourth prince's march tomorrow and delay your return journey." Zhao Qinggang left, and Chen Mama came over with Kingolf and the coachman, speaking with a strange tone. She was dressed in silk clothes, wrinkled on the side lying in the carriage. At this moment, she was supported by Kingolf, holding her forehead, looking uncomfortable. Qing Yuguan glanced at Kingolf, who shyly avoided Qing Yuguan's gaze. Although she said she was the maid she brought for her, she was now following her grandmother to serve her. Qing Yuguan was too lazy to say more. "You can do whatever you want." After speaking, Qing Yuguan forcefully controlled his legs and didn't show any timidity in front of Chen Mama and the others. He returned to the tent that Zhao Cheng had just pointed out to her. "Her thighs must have worn the skin, she needs to go back and wash and apply medicine. After all, tomorrow is another whole day. Mammy, isn't it not good for us to be like this? After all, we are young ladies." Kingolf saw Qing Yuguan's stiff back and couldn't bear to say it. Upon hearing Kingolf's words, Grandma Chen slammed her finger on her forehead and said, "Didn't you just listen to the young lady? She let us do whatever we want. You should listen to the young lady. When she gets past her limits and needs us, then we will have dignity. Just think about yesterday when the young lady was startled. If we don't argue, will we have a good life when we return to the mansion in the future? Only if she can't hold on and give in to us, will she be too embarrassed to pursue us when she returns to the mansion." But Kingolf was not a girl bought from outside, but a family-born child. She grew up in front of her parents from a young age, and her color was average. Her parents didn't expect her to climb high, so Kingolf was innocent from a young age and didn't have so many small thoughts. At this moment, when she heard what Mama Chen said, she felt it was wrong but couldn't refute it, and only subconsciously followed the arrangements. Glancing in the direction of the young lady again, Qinglu finally helped Chen Mama, who had been lying down all day, back to the tent. The fourth prince has a noble status and is well-rounded in his actions, so he naturally won't overlook them. Over there, Qing Yuguan struggled to apply medicine to himself, took a few bites of food, and then lay down to sleep. At the center of the army, a large tent was spread open, and the fourth prince sat upright, looking at the map on the table. Beside him, there was even an auspicious beast incense burner, emitting green smoke. Lin Jing and Zhao Cheng are guarding left and right. After a while, Zhao Cheng couldn't help complaining, "If you want to say that Marquis Cheng's wife has always been famous in Beijing, how could you think of being so stingy in private? She sent a mammy to grind the first lady's daughter. Marquis Cheng won't say anything, and she won't be afraid that General Huo will see her in the future, and the two relatives will not become enemies." Qing Yuguan fainted the carriage for more than 10 days. She couldn't eat well, sleep well, and was already haggard. Yesterday, she was frightened by 2 mountain bandits. She was so energetic that she kept up her spirit today and followed them all the way. That strong look made Zhao Qingdu, who was hard as iron and experienced in the battlefield, a little impatient, and complained to His Highness roast. Upon hearing Zhao Cheng's words, Lin Jing thought about how many times Chen Mama got off the carriage to eat and use the restroom today, and how many little maids were by her side to serve. He also thought about the pale face of Qing Yuguan during the meal, and couldn't help but shake his head. People know their faces but not their hearts. In the past, the Marquis family was also considered harmonious and happy in the capital, but who knew that there was such a hidden truth behind it? "I heard that Lady Cheng was not favored by the Marquis back then. She helped the current marquis less than a year after Lady Ho's death, and had a very unpleasant argument with the Hui family. The Hui family has been guarding the border for many years, but now they have returned to Beijing, thinking that these were two families. The signal of reconciliation seems to be causing some trouble. The fourth prince also noticed the master and servant of the Qing family today. At this moment, he couldn't help but shake his head when he heard the two subordinates leaning towards Qing Yuguan's words. This young lady of the Qing family is not smart either. She is the master, and it is only natural for her to be served by servants. Because of a moment of anger, what is the use of her besides being wronged? The Hui family can leave her at the ancestral residence of the Qing family for more than 10 years. Now that they return to the capital to contact the Marquis's mansion again, they have only been at the border for a long time, hoping to provide more assistance in the capital. The existence of the young lady of the Qing family is important, but not so important. If she can be informed and interested, and find the right and left, she will not worry. There's no good day. But she's still so stubborn. The Cheng and Hui families probably don't have much patience with her. Upon hearing His Highness's words, Zhao Cheng and Lin Jing exchanged a glance, their expressions somewhat solemn. High and noble, some people hold golden spoons and are pampered by others. Some are cold and thin, allowing them to live or die. Ultimately, it's all about benefits. Qing Yuguan's temperament, in the Marquis's mansion, is really hard to say what will happen. The Hui family guards the border, and their family has good relations with the Marquis Cheng's mansion. I'm afraid your Majesty also doesn't want to see them, right? Lin Jing pondered and said. Zhao Qing said, after all, it's my own child. The Hui family and the Qing family wouldn't be too cold-hearted, would they? If your Highness could give Qing Yuguan a few words to wake her up. As soon as Zhao Qing finished speaking, he caught the attention of the fourth prince and Lin Jing. The fourth prince's expression was inexplicable. How could you also have pity for fragrance and jade? Lin Jing looked at his companions with an inexplicable expression. Zhao Cheng's face turned black and red, and he quickly waved his hand. Your Highness, what are you talking about? Miss Qing from the Qing family is only a few years old. My humble position is just because she is a little one. My father doesn't care about my mother's early death, and she is so strong that she has a heart of compassion. If this child were a kid, my humble position would be better to beat and beat. Unfortunately, she is a girl with such a noble status, but now she doesn't even have a servant, which makes it hard to look at. Seeing Zhao Qing feeling uneasy, Lin Jing also smiled and said, You black charcoal, I didn't expect you to listen to me with a soft heart. Zhao Qing muttered, They all have no father or mother. In this world, without a mother, there is no shelter, and with a father, they become stepfathers. After hearing Zhao Cheng's words, the fourth prince and Lin Jing also fell silent. The next day, Qing Yuguan got on his horse again. It was unclear whether his body had become accustomed to it or whether today's journey was simpler and smoother than yesterday. In short, Qing Yuguan felt as if he had adapted more. There is a town ahead, let's rest at the post station today. Well, I got it, brother Zhao. Today, Qing Yuguan didn't grit his teeth all the way, but instead regained some energy and had some communication with the few people who were on their way together. The person who speaks the most is Zhao Qing, who has a black face and a kind heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Black Hand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Black Hand. Miss and Mr. Zhao actually hit it off. In the post station, Chen Mama and Qing LV, who were arranged in the corner, looked at Lin Jing and Zhao Qing eating at the same table. Qing Yuguan, who was chatting and laughing, had an unpleasant expression. Kingle spoke with some envy. Chen Mama pouted and said, Men and women are 7 years old and have different seats. After all, the eldest lady grew up in the countryside, without any rules, and has lowered her social status. If our second young lady were here, those guards wouldn't be able to talk to us. Our second young lady, the legitimate daughter of the Marquis's mansion, would only sit at the same table as the fourth prince. Grandma Chen spoke of Miss Eyre with a proud expression, as if she was very proud of the miss she was talking about. Qingolf also withdrew her gaze from Qing Yuguan and said sincerely, "That's nature. Miss Yulo is naturally beautiful, and she is knowledgeable and courteous." From the old lady to the maids and servants in the Marquis's mansion, they all respect and love Miss Yulo. Even in the entire capital city, our second miss is one of the most prestigious daughters, even more famous than those princesses and nobles. Speaking of Miss Qinglu, a little girl who has never been in the inner courtyard to serve, also looks very proud. Although she has never served Miss Yulo, both inside and outside the mansion, she has praised Miss Eyre highly. She has never heard anyone say that Miss Eyre is not good. I heard that the recent maid in the inner courtyard has made a mistake and only requests to appear in front of Miss Eyre. Miss Eyre will always be lenient. Qingolf's wish is to one day enter Miss Eyre's yard to serve her. Chen Mama couldn't help but curl her lips when she saw Qingolf's true feelings. "You girl, you still know these things. Don't worry, when you return to Beijing this time, I will speak up for you in front of Madame and let you serve in Miss Eyre's Qiongling garden." "Really? Thank you very much, Grandma. Your tea has cooled down, I'll air another cup for you." Chen Mama hinted at this many times, but it was the first time she had spoken so directly today. Qingolf was pleasantly surprised and even more attentive. "Just now, I looked at the envy of the young lady and immediately forgot about it. If we don't think of a way again, don't say we'll get rewarded when we go back, we'll probably sit on the bench." The coachman Ma Yuliang suddenly said. Chen Mama's smile disappeared and she looked at Ma Yuliang. The coachman Ma Yuliang's honest face showed an inexplicable expression as he looked at Chen Mama and said, "We have arrived at Shangling County. After passing Shangling, we have a smooth journey. Not only is the road easy to walk, but it is also served by post stations all the way. There are few more days of camping and dining. After all, the eldest lady is a rural elder who can endure hardship and has a good physical foundation." After more than 10 days of being wasted by the carriage, she recovered in just 2 days. Now, her relationship with Lord Lin Jing and Zhao Cheng's guards is becoming more and more familiar. It's hard to say that under the care of the two adults, the eldest lady immediately recovered. When she entered the capital, the husband saw that the young lady is radiant and has established a relationship with the fourth prince. "How do you think Madame will view us?" Qingolf widened her eyes and looked confused, but Chen Mama's face darkened. "Yeah, we can't wait any longer," Chen Mama murmured. "At Qing Yuguan's place, I didn't know anyone was so upset about her. She rode horses all day today and there was also a post station providing food and accommodation. Therefore, after having dinner with Brother Zhao, she couldn't wait to return to her room and prepare to rest. Miss, the water temperature has been adjusted for you, so I'll go down first. Just call me after you take a shower." There were also servants at the post station. Although Qing Yuguan did not indicate her identity, she lived with the fourth prince at the post station. The post minister was worried about offending the fourth prince due to poor service, so as the only young lady in the team, Qing Yuguan was also assigned a dedicated servant to serve. "Thank you very much." Faced with the servant's careful report, Qing Yuguan instinctively thanked her and prepared to enter the bathing room. "Miss, you're too polite. This is what maids should do." With her head always hanging in front of her, the honest and attentive servant said so. Qing Yuguan nodded and entered the bathing room. The room is not big, with only one door and one window. There is a screen in the room, and in the center of the room, there is a wooden bucket. Inside, most of the bucket of water is already prepared, and steam is emitting. Qing Yuguan walked around the room, confirming that there were no dead corners and no one was hiding. He then took off his clothes and entered the bathtub. The slightly hot water made Qing Yuguan, who was feeling sore all over, couldn't help but take a breath. It was really comfortable for someone who had been tired all day to take a hot bath. Unconsciously, Qing Yuguan had been soaking for almost half an hour, and the water had become slightly cold. Standing up from the tub, Qing Yuguan changed into clothes and prepared to leave the room to call for someone, only to find that the door couldn't be opened. Pop pop pop. Qing Yuguan patted the door and said, "Is there anyone outside? I'm done washing, open the door and let me out." The weather in late spring and early summer is warm during the day and cool again at night. This is a rare and pleasant season of the year. If at this moment, Qing Yuguan had a thin blanket covering his body and was lying in a clean and warm blanket, it would be an absolute comfortable experience. But at this moment, she had just taken a shower, her hair was wet, and she was wearing a single layer of clothing. In no time, Qing Yuguan felt a chill on her body. Moreover, her agony on the carriage a few days ago has not yet eased. Today, she has been riding horses and marching for a whole day, feeling tired, sore, and cold. Qing Yuguan unconsciously shivered and sneezed a few times. "I'm afraid I'll catch a cold." Qing Yu expressed concern and secretly called out that it was not good. If she were sick, even if it were a minor ailment of a cold and fever, she would definitely not be able to keep up with the fourth prince and his entourage tomorrow. Thinking of being with Grandma Qin again and returning to the capital together, Qing Yuguan's hand slammed the door even harder. "Is there anyone? Open the door." The women's bathhouse was already remote, and now those who had been tired all day had fallen asleep, and no one heard Qing Yuguan shout. His hands turned red as he slapped them. Qing Yuguan looked at the motionless door in front of him, and his anger surged in his heart. He began to kick the door hard. The wooden door creaked and swayed, and soon Qing Yuguan kicked it into a gap. Through the still bright moonlight, Qing Yuguan saw the servant who was originally leaning against the door being kicked loose and pushed out. It seemed that he had never expected Qing Yuguan to look weak and lethargic, but with such great strength. The servant turned back in shock, just across the door from Qing Yuguan's gaze. "Open the door," Qing Yuguan said coldly through the door. The servant smiled apologetically as she explained and walked over to open the door. "Miss, no wonder you kicked the door open just now. I was going to the kitchen to prepare for the late-night snack of the nobleman, and I was afraid that some ruffians would disturb Mrs. washing." The servant looked down to earth and explained with a low brow and pleasing expression. But just now, Qing Yuguan, who still felt pitiful and honest about the servant, saw her with an honest face and a mouth full of lies. He felt angry and raised his arm to slap and interrupt the servant's incessant explanation. "You hit me. You." The servant covered her face and looked at Qing Yuguan in surprise and anger. "Do you dare to hit someone? I respect you, Mississippi. Are you really carrying the young lady's airs to hit someone? Your cloth clothes, I haven't seen such a destitute young lady like you in all these years at the post station. If someone hadn't given me money, you would have thought I would come to serve you." The servant who had been hanging her head gently just now had a grim expression on her face. She covered half of her face and stood up with her eyes. "Little girl, how dare you hit someone? I told you to hit." As she spoke, the person raised her arm and rushed over, like a crab, trying to scare the enemy with her sturdy physique. Qing Yuguan was too lazy to argue with a servant, so he kicked her and instantly knocked her down, who had just been waving her teeth and claws. The servant covered her stomach and howled in sorrow, while her eyes were fixed on Qing Yuguan, afraid to get up and go wild again. "Miss, are you okay?" At this moment, Kingold suddenly ran out of the darkness, crossed the mournful servant on the ground, and walked to Qing Yuguan's side. She supported Qing Yuguan weakly and said with concern, "Miss, are you okay? I just went to your room to bring you tea, and found that you haven't returned yet." So she quickly came over. Although it started to heat up during the day, there were still gusts of cool breeze at night. "Don't get cold, I'll help you go back." Speaking, I will help Qing Yuguan up. Qing Yuguan had just finished bathing in the steam all over her body, and now she had already been blown dry by the wind. She felt her forehead was burning hot, knowing that she had been teased and plotted by someone. Seeing Kingolf coming over to pretend, she used all her strength to push her away. Qing Yuguan has been doing farm work and practicing martial arts since childhood. Even if he feels uncomfortable, his hands are still strong enough to push Kingolf to the ground in one fell swoop. "Miss, you're feeling unwell. Don't blame me, do you? I didn't invite you, didn't provoke you." Qinglu felt aggrieved and got up from the ground, standing far away beside Qing Yuguan. At this moment, Qing Yuguan was feeling uncomfortable and powerless all over, with a dry throat. He was too lazy to grind his teeth with the two people in front of him, so he prepared to walk back. Unexpectedly, Qing Yuguan was too lazy to pay attention to others. Kingolf was quite enthusiastic and took a few steps forward, blocking Qing Yuguan. "Although you are a young lady, you cannot be unreasonable. I kindly came to find you, but you pushed me down. If you don't give me an explanation, I will go to the fourth prince and Lord Lin to ask for an explanation. Let them know that you used to pretend to be kind in front of nobles, being cruel and rude in private. Your Highness and others have all been deceived." Qing Yuguan saw Kingolf for the first time, not hiding behind Qin Mama, but standing in front of him. Qing Yuguan supported his forehead with his hand and looked at the little girl in front of him, then at the servant who had already stood up and patted her buttocks. No matter how small a person is, they have two faces. Pity is truly pitiful, hateful is also truly hateful. Qing Yuguan thought that if she carried the airs of a young lady and wore luxurious clothing, neither of them would dare to say a word more in front of her. Even Qin Mama, the old crow, held a high and aloof demeanor, teasing her and disdaining to personally intervene. Instead, she hired two servants to take action. "What about myself?" The grand young lady of the Marquis's mansion was actually bullied by this servant so much. Sure enough, excess kindness and kindness are useless. Some people are just despicable and do not deserve the kindness of others. They are only worthy of being trampled on by others, and will only bow down. Qing Yuguan calmed down and lifted her foot again. This time, she didn't leave any strength and kicked Kingolf away, throwing her far away. When the servant saw Qing Yuguan like this, she also huddled aside and dared not step forward. "You hit someone. Killed someone. Help me." Kingolf flew out and lay on the ground, looking at Qing Yuguan incredulously. It seemed that she didn't understand why the young lady, who had been friendly and without any sense of propriety a few days ago, suddenly went crazy. However, she came here today to hold the young lady back and not let her easily rest. After a moment of confusion, Kingolf shouted loudly. Just now, Qing Yuguan was knocking on the door inside the room, but no one agreed. As soon as Kingolf called out, a group of people rushed out. "Kingolf! Is that you? Have you found the young lady?" Chen Mama, along with Zhao Cheng and Lin Jing, ran over with a worried expression on her face. When she saw Kingolf lying on the ground with a pitiful expression on her face, she rushed over in an instant. "Kingolf, what's wrong with you? Who dares to attack the people of the Marquis's mansion like this? Tell me, I've brought in Lord Lin and Lord Zhao, and they can all make decisions for you." At this moment, Kingolf extended her finger and pointed to Qing Yuguan. "Miss, I don't know what's wrong. I didn't do anything when I came over, so I was kicked by Mississippi." Mother Chen looked at Qing Yuguan in disbelief. "Madam, is what Qinglu said true? You beat her up?" "Qinglu is the maid in the madam's yard, and this time she went out. You don't look at the monk's face, but look at the Buddha's face. How can you be so cruel? You grew up in the countryside. I'm afraid you don't know that our Ho's residence is a famous and kind family in the capital. Every winter, we have to give congee at the gate of the city for relief. I haven't seen the master and the lady bring down the servants for no reason, let alone the people in the elder's yard. You are like this. Is it too poisonous? Is the life of the servant girl not life, and can people beat and scold at will? Chen Mama's tearful accusation, no matter how young and charming it is, would be pleasing to the eye. Unfortunately, her hair turned gray, but she still had to sing, recite, and play. Chen Yuguan covered his head and looked at Lin Jing and Zhao Cheng, who were inexplicably pulled over to watch the play with a look of surprise on their faces. "Brother Lin, Brother Zhao, do you have any typhoid fever pills? I'm afraid I need to take one pill." Lin Jing and Zhao Cheng were inexplicably pulled over by Chen Mama. They didn't understand anything and just heard her cry. At this moment, Chen Yuguan spoke up and realized that she was weak and had two rosy cheeks, as if she had caught a cold and a fever. Zhao Cheng quickly walked over and held on to Chen Yuguan's hand, only to realize that the child was very hot on his body. "Brother Lin, Miss Cheng has a fever." After listening, Lin Jing no longer looked at Chen Mama like she was watching a play. Instead, she came to Chen Yuguan and said, "Hurry up to the front yard, Dr. Zhang is right there." After speaking, protecting Chen Yuguan, she was about to leave. Seeing this, Grandma Chen patted her buttocks and wanted to stop her. "I'll come and support you, old servant. This man and woman are not compatible and have ruined the reputation of the mansion. Madam will be very angry." At this moment, the old devout woman was still making a fuss. Zhao Qing twisted and pushed Chen Mama out a long way, supporting Chen Yuguan and walking towards the front yard. Seeing the three of them ignoring her, Chen Mama's face looked ugly as she looked at Kingolf lying on the ground and a servant hiding beside her. "What are you still doing? Why don't you follow me up to the front yard? I don't believe it, and fourth prince is also unreasonable." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Lessons learned. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Lessons learned. In the quiet of the night, everyone who should have rested gathered in the lobby. Dr. Zhang, a military doctor, was sitting at the foot of the hall to check the pulse of Chen Yuguan. The fourth prince, who was startled, sat on his head, with Lin Jing and Zhao Cheng on both sides. Below, there stood Grandma Chen, Kingolf, a station maid, and a carriage driver named Ma Yuliang. There was such a commotion in the front yard, and the officials and soldiers of the Shangling post station also huddled at the door, waiting for the fourth prince, who was trembling with fear and waiting for his surrender. After all, this also involves the servants of this post station, and they can't stay out of it. The fourth prince, who was at the top of his head, had no expression on his face and scraped the teacup in his hand, making people feel uneasy. "Your Highness, you are the fourth brother of the fifth prince. We have a marriage contract with the fifth prince in our mansion, and the second miss has been a childhood sweetheart with the fifth prince. The old slave is also a servant of the second Mississippi. Speaking of which, we are all a family, and the so-called family shame is not to be exposed. In front of you, the old slave will not hide it. The first miss grew up in the ancestral Qing family village, acting recklessly and without rules, which alarmed the Highness. The servant will apologize to the fourth prince on behalf of the first Mississippi. After returning to the mansion, the madam and second miss will definitely give you an explanation." With Chen Mama's words, Lin Jing and Zhao Qingdu stared at her with wide eyes, secretly admiring her. Upon seeing this, Grandma Chen secretly felt proud and straightened her back, looking directly at the fourth prince as if she was confident and fearless. The fourth prince scraped the teacups one by one without saying a word. The hall was quiet, and Chen Yuguan even breathed lightly. "This hand." Dr. Zhang remained calm and asked Chen Yuguan to change his hand to pulse. "Oh." Upon hearing this, Chen Yuguan quickly put on another arm. Now, Dr. Zhang didn't ponder as carefully as before, just rested his wrist for a moment before retracting his hand. "You have been eating poorly lately, experiencing disharmony in your spleen and stomach, and being unable to sleep for several days, which has caused damage to your mind. That's why you are easily invaded by external evil. I will prescribe you a pair of sedatives. I will drink them tonight, sleep on your head all night, and you will be fine tomorrow." Dr. Zhang prescribed a prescription while speaking. Upon hearing this, Chen Yuguan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you very much, Dr. Zhang." Dr. Zhang had graying hair, a calm expression, and was dressed in a light-colored Taoist robe. His demeanor was relaxed. At this moment, everyone in the hall was tense, but he remained calm and composed. With the aura of an extraordinary expert, Chen Yuguan breathed a sigh of relief when he said it was not a big deal. Dr. Zhang wrote the prescription, and with a glance from Grandma Chen, Kinglove was about to come forward and take it, but Dr. Zhang dodged it and gave it to the nearby guard. "Dr. Zhang." Kinglove murmured softly, "I am the maid assigned by the lady to the young lady. Just give me the prescription, and I will go and cook the medicine for the young lady later." Dr. Zhang seemed to have not heard it. "They are all common medicines. Boil 3 bowls over high heat to make 1 bowl, and then bring it over to Miss Cheng." Kinglove was ignored and wronged, so she hid behind Grandma Chen. Chen Mama glared at Kinglove with a resentful expression, then turned to Dr. Zhang and said, "You said Miss is not a big deal, so let's rest assured. Let's leave the rough work of boiling medicine to Kinglove. Kinglove, hurry up and boil medicine for Mississippi." Chen Mama's words fell, and the flickering candles in the hall crackled, startling Kinglove. She looked around and saw the deep and secluded hall, with the 4th Prince's guards lining up on both sides, hidden in the dark and solemnly guarding, adding an inexplicable sense of tension to the atmosphere. She looked towards the entrance where the guard had disappeared, which was pitch black and seemed like a monster's huge mouth, making people feel suppressed and inexplicably unable to lift their legs. Seeing Kinglove being intimidated and useless like a little chicken, Chen Mama used her iron finger to point Kinglove forcefully. "You are a servant of the Marquis's mansion, serving Madam. Now that Madam is not here, who can still use lynching to deal with you? What are you afraid of?" As she spoke, Grandma Chen glanced at Chen Yuguan and then glanced at the silent 4th Prince. "Miss, even if you're right, you have to endure the scolding. When you return to the mansion, your wife will make the decision for you. At this moment, Miss needs to take medicine. You are assigned by your wife to take care of Mississippi. If you don't take medicine, will you still trouble someone else? Go." Qinglu was knocked unconscious by Grandma Chen, and instinctively wanted to go down and take medicine. However, she was stopped by the guards when she walked to the entrance of the main room. "Mammy." Qinglu turned around and asked Grandma Chen for advice. Upon seeing this, Grandma Chen looked up at the 4th Prince and said, "Your Highness, this is the family matter of our Marquis's mansion. Even if you are revered as the prince, it's not easy for you to interfere casually, right? Noisy." The 4th Prince spat out 2 words in his mouth, and Zhao Qing stepped forward in the next second, slapped and knocked Chen Mama to the ground. Chen Mama let out a scream, revealing a mouthful of blood and even spitting out 2 big teeth. "Your Highness, what are you doing? Even the Marquis has never touched a finger on our old face as a servant in the Marquis Qing mansion for several lifetimes." The mournful appeal was not finished, and Zhao Qing slapped him tightly. Pop. The loud slapping sound made one's ears ache. Chen Mama finally shut up, with fear appearing in her eyes for the first time. She covered her swollen side face and dared not speak again. Kinglove was standing at the door at this moment, and had already shrunk to the door when Zhao Qing hit first, afraid that others would pay attention. Chen Mama's place, she dare not go over at this moment. As servants, you must serve your master well. Miss Cheng's diet is not good and she cannot sleep, which is your dereliction of duty. It's so useless. How dare you make noise in front of everyone? Why do you want to ride on your master's head? You are such bad servants who betray your master. I will teach you a lesson, even Marquis Qing dare not distinguish for you. With these words, Chen Mama, Qinglu, and the other 3 shrank their necks, unable to argue. Then, the 4th Prince's indifferent gaze turned to Qing Yuguan. You are the master of a few of them, but now you want me to take action on your behalf. It's like you owe your Highness a favor. Your Highness will help everyone to the end today. How will you deal with them? Where does Qing Yuguan know how to deal with servants? She has never used servants in her 2 lifetimes, let alone Qing Yulo. She grew up with noble values and proper upbringing, so naturally she has no experience in disciplining servants. She was impatient just now and could beat up these few. Now, when 4th Prince asked, Qing Yuguan could only think of asking them to apologize to him. Shouldn't we apologize for doing something wrong? Let them apologize to me. Qing Yuguan spoke somewhat confidently. The servant, along with Kingolv and Kingolv, immediately threw herself at Qing Yuguan's feet and kowtowed to apologize upon hearing this. Miss, I have no eyes, I have offended you. It's all that old lady who gave me money to lock you up for a while. As for her malicious ideas, I don't know at all. I am just a servant at this post station, give me 10 courage, and I dare not touch the guests at our post station, Mississippi. You are very observant, so please spare me. The servant no longer had the honest and straightforward appearance she had when she first met. At this moment, when she kowtowed to apologize, her mouth was sharp and every sentence was someone else's fault, and she was innocent. Kingolv was the same, kneeling in front of Qing Yuguan and looking at him, Miss, I am young and not sensible. I always follow orders from Grandma Chen and never dare to be arrogant. Now that Dr. Zhang says you are not in a big deal, I also breathed a sigh of relief. You kicked me 2 times just now, and I didn't complain at all. I only ask for Mrs. Forgiveness. Qing Yuguan looked at the pitiful appearance of the 2 people now and instinctively looked at the 4th prince who was in charge. Lighten up. They apologize on their lips, and you can breathe the same sigh in your heart. 4th Prince Dao. Qing Yuguan shook his head. She couldn't think of how to deal with them, but just now she saw their ferocious faces. The 2 of them in front of her apologized lightly and couldn't figure out what to think. She wasn't willing to just raise her hand and let it go lightly. Faced with the gaze of the 4th prince, Qing Yuguan thought of the method in the TV drama, 30 big boards per person. The servant and Kingolv were horrified, no longer pretending to apologize, but tears and nose streamed out, constantly kowtowing to apologize. The 4th prince shook his head and said, it's too heavy. An ordinary man, who has been beaten 30 times, is still in danger of his life. Although they are guilty, they are not guilty to death. Just now, the 2 people who looked at the 4th prince like Yen Luo suddenly changed their minds and looked at Qing Yuguan. Miss, the 4th prince is right. Weak women like servants cannot afford these 30 big boards. That's 10 boards. Qing Yuguan pounded his hand and looked at the 4th prince clapping the board. The 4th prince nodded, his chin lightly tapped, and a guard immediately approached, dragging the 2 out. The sound of the board's screams echoed from outside the room. The 4th prince, however, seemed oblivious and turned his gaze to the coachman beside him. The coachman's face was already pale. At this moment, he noticed the gaze of the 4th prince, and his legs immediately softened. He knelt on the ground without saying a word, as if bowing down to admit his mistake. At this moment, Qing Yuguan had some thoughts in his heart. He looked up at the 4th prince and said, although the coachman didn't speak, he was very cruel in his heart. So, what about the 20th board? The 4th prince listened, but shook his head and said, you either ignore such a ruthless person, or if you do, make him powerless to fight back. Otherwise, he will hold grudges in his heart all the way. Can you still defend against them? Qing Yuguan understood and said, what do you think? The 4th prince nodded his chin and said, I'll help you again. Someone, lock this coachman and keep him locked with those fake mountain bandits. We'll investigate and deal with them after we enter the capital. At this moment, the coachman stopped pretending and looked at the 4th prince in horror. He then turned to Qing Yuguan and said, Miss, I still have a wife and children in my family. Please be merciful. I am willing to bear the 30 taels and let you vent your anger. Qing Yuguan shook his head and said, don't tell me. How many times did I ask you to stop on the carriage? From beginning to end, you didn't take me seriously, so don't beg for mercy from me at this moment. In the blink of an eye, the coachman was dragged down by the guard. Chen Mama was lying on the ground at this moment, her fierce gaze turning into fear. The fourth prince nodded at the old slave and said simply, "It's not an exaggeration to immediately kill the stubborn slave who is favored and spoiled, surpassing the master. But after all, she is under the command of the marquis's wife." So he signed and bound her mistake, and then handed it over to the marquis's wife for disposal. Qing Yuguan clapped his hands and said, "Your Highness is very clever." The fourth prince shook his head and asked the station steward to come forward. He wrote a confession letter and handed it to Chen Mama, then showed her the ink. Chen Mama looked around and saw that in this hall, besides the eldest lady, there were also people from the fourth prince. Along the way, she flattered the Lin guards, but never found a way out. She saw the young lady becoming increasingly familiar with several subordinates of the fourth prince. At present, no one can plead for her, and Chen Mama simply signed the confession letter. Above, it is written about her dereliction of duty and recklessness. With this, even if she returns to the mansion, Madame has nothing to say. It cannot be said that for the sake of face, Madame will punish herself severely. Thinking of this, the spirit that Grandma Chen had been carrying all the way instantly disintegrated and was dragged down by the guards, like a dead dog. Although Qing Yuguan still had a slight fever at this moment, after a good scene of the fourth prince's reasonable and well-founded handling of the servants, her spirit came back to her. She looked at the fourth prince with bright eyes and stood up to thank him. "Thank you very much for the fourth prince's help." The fourth prince sat up and lazily waved his hand. "I'm not being kind-hearted. As I just said, you owe me a favor. I'll take action on your behalf once and guide you to deal with servants. You'll have to repay these two in the future." Qing Yuguan nodded vigorously and said, "Of course I want to repay it. I have taken your kindness to heart, and in the future, wherever it is useful to me, just speak up." Seeing Qing Yuguan wrapped in a cloak, his eyes moist with fever, and his cheeks flushed with innocence, the fourth prince picked up a tea-cup and covered the raised corners of his mouth. On the side, Lin Jing and Zhao Cheng exchanged a glance, looking sympathetically at the ignorant Qing Yuguan. This favor is difficult to repay, and the favor of fourth prince is even more difficult to repay. Miss Cheng's happy promise at this moment is still too simplistic. The two of them silently mourned for Miss Cheng, but as the fourth prince, they naturally wouldn't tear down their own master's platform. In the lobby, it quieted down again. Qing Yuguan sat on one side, waiting for his medicine. The fourth prince quietly sat up and drank tea. "Today, I'll teach you a lesson. Have you received any lessons?" Coldly, the fourth prince spoke, breaking the silence in the hall. Qing Yuguan is also happy to talk more. She was just an ordinary girl in her previous life, a well-behaved girl from a young age, and worked hard all the way through studying, taking exams, and going to work. If there is anything special about her, it is that as she grows up, she becomes more silent. Her parents say she has become increasingly isolated, but she just follows her own heart and doesn't want to deal with some boring people and say meaningless things. Coming through time, still viviparous. As soon as Qing Yuguan opened her eyes, she experienced her biological mother's massive bleeding. The night of chaos and intrigue overwhelmed her. Immediately after, she was carried by the nursing mother to her ancestral home and grew up in the relatively simple and closed environment of Qingjia village. She was regarded as a daughter by the clan leader's family. In this ancient era where there was no guide and no way out, Qing Yuguan almost thought he was going to die peacefully in Qingjia village. Unexpectedly, her maternal grandfather's family, who had long forgotten about her, won and returned to court. Her little transparency regained its value, and she was taken out of the Qing family village by Chen Mama and a few others. Qing Yuguan's biological father, under the command of the marquis, could not be forcibly left behind by the clan leader. Therefore, Qing Yuguan, who had lived in a simple environment for 2 lifetimes, had to go to the capital and face an unprecedented complex situation. A cold father, a scheming stepmother, a stepsister brother waiting to take her blessings, and a family of grandparents who have not met in over a decade. Even, there were servants like Chen Mama who charged ahead and took charge for the master. When she thought of entering the Ho's mansion, she was helpless and surrounded by other people's eyeliner and subordinates. If someone really wanted to kill herself, she could not drink a glass of water at will. The days of being surrounded by songs and moving step by step, Chen Yuguan, a girl who has never experienced it before, are not just about anxiety and fear. At birth, the chaos of war and chaos seemed to be unfolding again in her life, as if conspiracy and balance were about to unfold. Before Chen Yuguan was ready, Chen Mama and the three of them gave him a good lesson. No need for Marquis Lord and Marquis Lady, let alone the female protagonist's conspiracy and calculation. With only 3 servants, she almost lost half of her life. At this moment, facing the examination of the 4th prince's teachings, Chen Yuguan naturally felt unhappy in his heart. This is the experience and ideas she has summarized in just half a month, and she can't wait to share them with a stranger. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Arrival. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chen Yuguan's eyes wandered around Lin Jing, Zhao Cheng, and others, looking towards the 4th prince. I have come to realize that no matter when, one must always have their own person by their side, otherwise they will be easily rubbed by others. With a sneer, the 4th prince mercilessly sneered, "Are you one of your own people? How can you be considered one of your own people? When you enter the Marquis's mansion, bribe 3 servants to protect you. If you think so, there will be many people who want to bribe you. First of all, it's the Marquis's kitchen. You can't just eat or drink, can you? You can't even protect what you eat. You're the meat on someone else's chopping board. If someone calls you dead at the 3rd watch, you won't live until the 5th watch. Another thing is your own bedroom, you need to build it into a copper wall and iron wall. In case there is a slight loophole, can you sleep soundly at night? Eating and sleeping are not guaranteed at all, let alone anything else. Not to mention these, the people you have bribed also need to be discerning. Between you and Madame Ho, they persistently choose you, and once they choose, they will never betray you. Don't be swayed by the temptation of the heavens. You are really the chosen one." The 4th prince spoke in a slow and leisurely tone, but Chen Yuguan's face became even redder. It's too embarrassing. She thought too simply, appearing naive to the point of foolishness. Yes, she is not the heavenly electress who inexplicably gathers everyone's favor and support. Why should others choose her between herself and the Marquis's mansion? A wealthy and powerful person in charge of the Marquis's mansion, a thin and foolish miss, with no foundation, even if she chooses, she will not hesitate to stand on the side of the Marquis's mansion. How can she demand that others unconditionally stand on her side? Even if such a person exists, they have other purposes, and she will have to pay a corresponding price to be able to do so. Chen Yuguan stood up with a heart of shame and bowed deeply to the 4th prince, "Please advise." The 4th prince put down the teacup and sat up straight to look at Chen Yuguan. It's a good idea that you want someone to protect you. But why others are protecting you is the fundamental reason. You need to make yourself valuable. He said this statement is simple, but Chen Yuguan is unable to grasp it. How can I make myself valuable? I did some small business with a few cousins, but compared to the Marquis's mansion, the silver should not be much. Chen Yuguan was distressed and said that the only way she could think of to add value to herself was to use money. The 4th prince shook his head. It's related to silver, but silver is not the most fundamental. Although money can make ghosts grind, can you come across a person who doesn't know anything about them and just smashes them with money? And there's no one around you who is sincere and capable. Even if you use money, how do you know if others have taken it, not only don't help you, but also curse you behind your back? Chen Yuguan's head was a bit confused. Then we still need our own people. But didn't you just say, without value, we can't get someone to sincerely support us? Qing Yuguan, a straight woman from a previous life and a well-behaved woman living under the 5-star red flag, couldn't imagine how to live a peaceful life in a deep mansion. She has no foundation and some small money. But what the fourth prince said is reasonable. These are not of much use in the marquis's mansion, they cannot be said, and they will be laughed at as unjust leaders. Qing Yuguan set his gaze on the fourth prince. Now, only the fourth prince can guide him in the right direction. The fourth prince leaned down slightly to look at Qing Yuguan, his momentum pressing down, and said softly. To make oneself valuable, it is natural to see the gathering of you, or to put it bluntly, your own ability. As a woman, your most basic ability is to be submissive and beautiful. A woman who knows submissiveness is naturally loved by others. If there is beauty, it is to add value to oneself. Didn't Chen Mama just say that? The Marquis Qing mansion has an engagement with the fifth prince. Do you know why she has to grind you on the road? She just wants you to come to Beijing with a haggard appearance. In this way, you have no comparability with Miss Heir of the Marquis's mansion. Even if you are the granddaughter of the Hua family, as a woman, if you are weak and haggard, even General Hua, you cannot force the fifth prince to choose you. The fourth prince's frank words were somewhat unacceptable to Qing Yuguan. Do you mean that if I want to make myself valuable, I must strive to get an engagement with the fifth prince? The fourth prince still sat upright on his head, but for some reason, Qing Yuguan felt that the fourth prince was high and condescending at this time. This is the simplest and most direct way. Speaking, it seemed that Qing Yuguan's simple mind couldn't react, and he even explained a few things. You have been raised in Qingjia village since childhood. There is no proper familial bond between you, Marquis Qing, and other relatives in the Marquis's mansion. Although sometimes familial bonds are meaningless and intangible, they still require years of cultivation to possess. Imagine, you and Miss Heir, a young girl who grew up tall and graceful under the noses of others from a young age, learning to speak, have been facing each other for over a decade. Compared to your sudden appearance as a stranger, who would the Marquis's family lean more towards? The fourth prince saw Qing Yuguan pondering and then continued speaking. You, a weak woman, do not have the kind of familial bond you should have with your relatives. Only with the blood relationship with General Hua can you and Miss Qing, Marquis, stand on the same starting line and compete for the engagement with the fifth prince. Only when you successfully seize this engagement, have value and prospects, can you have servants willing to follow you, and only then can you successfully establish a foothold in the Marquis Qing mansion. The fourth prince's words were clear and straightforward, and Qing Yuguan now fully understood. She needs capital to survive in the precarious Duke Cheng's mansion. Her current capital, most importantly, is naturally the granddaughter of the Hua family. With the help of her maternal family, she can only compete with the master and marquis lady behind Chen Mama after winning the engagement of the fifth prince. Otherwise, what happened today will be a lesson. Although she just wanted to take a shower and have a good night's sleep, she was tricked and framed into catching a cold and fever. There is no value in supporting her, even a grandma can play with her. If she hadn't had a good physical foundation since childhood, a fever would have taken her life. When survival is still a challenge, dignity becomes even more difficult to talk about. Yes, although the fourth prince is a matter of fact. But Qing Yuguan's 3 values since childhood make her feel that her dignity has been violated. She is a living person, but nowadays, it is said that only by obtaining a marriage contract through courtesy and beauty can she be valuable. No one feels good about this statement when it comes to anyone. It seems like she is just an object being weighed by others, while she herself is worthless. But unfortunately, this is reality. Qing Yuguan's heart was filled with mixed emotions, feeling momentarily lost, somewhat depressed, and somewhat angry. She thought that if she had backbone, she should fiercely refute it. But there's no way, she can't turn back. She couldn't go back to Qingjia village. In ancient times, she was a weak woman with no family or kinship, and couldn't establish herself in other places. In front of her, there was only one way to enter the Marquis's mansion. To establish herself in the crisis-ridden Ho mansion, she had only one way to secure a marriage contract. Otherwise, waiting for her may be a cold wind, silently taking her life. Just like the ending written in the book, it fell into the water and disappeared inexplicably. Chen Yuguan let out a soft sigh and fell weakly onto the chair. In the hall, I don't know when there were no more people left, only the fourth prince, 3 servants, and Chen Yuguan. Head up, the fourth prince picked up the teacup again. Lin Jing and Zhao Qing exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with resentment, but it was just a hint. Who can be responsible for others? One's own way out can only be determined by oneself. They are the fourth prince's people, so naturally they will not go against the master's wishes. At present, they do not know the true intention of the master, but they silently support it. At this moment, a servant came up with medicine, and Chen Yuguan took it. It was still a bit hot, but it could be swallowed. Just like the fourth prince's harsh advice. Chen Yuguan endured the heat, poured the medicine into his mouth in one breath, and stood up to bid farewell. Thank you very much for the fourth prince's help today. If I can successfully establish a foothold in the Marquis Cheng's mansion, I will report back to the fourth prince for his guidance today. After speaking, Chen Yuguan turned around and left. Her self-esteem and heart were shattered, and she really didn't want to face the few people in front of her. At this moment, she just wanted to go back to her own room and lick her wounds in a deserted place. Looking at Chen Yuguan's slightly unsteady back, Zhao Qing couldn't bear it. Your Highness, Miss Cheng is innocent. Why do you say these words to stab her? The fourth prince put down his teacup and said, Do you think I'm too much? Zhao Qing lowered his head and remained silent in agreement. At this moment, the fourth prince said, Chen Yuguan has been living in the countryside since childhood. The biggest setback in his life is nothing more than being scolded by his elders. But now he wants to enter the deep courtyard of the Marquis Cheng's mansion, which is a place that eats people. Looking at the flowers and luxurious clothing and food outside, it's actually a matter of human nature. If I don't wake her up, I'm sure tomorrow she will be pushed off the carriage by the little girl Kingled and die on the spot. Since she has the chance to accompany me, since I have taken action, I naturally want to wake her up. Now that she can't bear a few words, she still shouldn't go to the capital or compete for the engagement of the fifth prince. Just find someone to marry at this post station, so that she doesn't have to face the ups and downs of the capital. It all depends on her decision tonight whether to go to the capital for a fight or to risk her life. Tomorrow, no one should go to Chen Yuguan to urge her, let her decide for herself whether to continue going to the capital or stay in place. By then, I believe she has made up her mind. The next day, as usual, it was a sunny day, and the people at the post station watched as the fourth prince and his group of distinguished guests departed. The difference is that in the team, there is a woman wearing a curtain hat. At noon, the team set up camp. Chen Yuguan regained his usual lively demeanor and followed behind the fourth prince. The fourth prince glanced at Chen Yuguan, who was lifted up in front of him, wearing a curtain hat. If you're afraid of wind and frost, I can buy you a carriage to ensure it's comfortable and not swaying, and it won't make you dizzy. Riding a horse with a curtain hat is not troublesome. Chen Yuguan shook his head repeatedly and said, You're right. As a girl, I still need to pay attention to my appearance. But I can't stand the stuffiness of the carriage, so I'll just wear a curtain hat to block the wind and frost. This is Chen Yuguan's straightforward words against the fourth prince and some small resistance. Although she agrees with the views of the fourth prince, she also has her own persistence. Although she is forced by the situation, she still has her own pursuits. When one day she can control her own destiny, she will still live according to her own wishes and live her life for a lifetime, so as not to waste this life. The fourth prince saw Chen Yuguan being stubborn and chuckled lightly, letting her go. Everyone has their own ideas, and if they all follow what they should do, what's the difference from being a puppet? Chen Mama and Kingled, since the night at the post station, have been recuperating in low key. The fourth prince has already made it clear that he wants to help Qing Yuguan, so they naturally dare not make any further moves. Do you have any ideas? We can only make plans after successfully arriving in the capital and separating from the fourth prince. So these days, Qing Yuguan's life has become easier. She has gradually become accustomed to riding horses and traveling hundreds of miles a day without hesitation. Feeling his progress, Qing Yuguan secretly felt happy. She knew this skill and was sneered at by the fourth prince, thinking that if she had this skill, it would be better to take good care of herself and think about dressing up effectively. But she knows that her qualifications are limited. No matter how much she maintains and dresses, can she still compare to the mastery of the female protagonist Qing Yulo, who has been taught by her mother since childhood and immersed in decades of experience. That's why Qing Yuguan only wore a curtain hat and didn't let himself face too much wind and frost. Dressing and dressing up is someone else's strength, her strength lies elsewhere. Is this the capital city? After days of rushing, Qing Yuguan finally saw the legendary capital. The city wall, resembling a giant beast, lay in the distance, and Qing Yuguan felt a little timid. Once she steps into this place, her relaxed and carefree days are gone forever, surrounded only by her heart and calculations. Thinking of the days when Qing Yuguan would gradually move forward, he instinctively tightened the reins. After spending many days together, Qing Yuguan has become increasingly familiar with Lin Jing and Zhao Qing. She is now following the fourth prince side by side with the two fourth prince guards. At this moment, she hesitates for a step, and the fourth prince in front immediately notices. Let's go, it's the dragon pond and tiger's nest. Don't you dare to give it a try, dare you? Facing the fierce fourth prince, Qing Yuguan loosened the reins and lifted his chin. Who dares not? I don't know if I can win, but I dare to dive in and stir the wind and rain. Let's go. The fourth prince smiled and shook his head, while Lin Jing and Zhao Qing looked at Qing Yuguan Aojiao's expression and couldn't help but glance at each other. Liao Cheng, the butler of the old slave Lord Cheng's mansion, has met the fourth prince. He has met the Grand Mississippi. As soon as he approached the city gate, an old man dressed in a dark satin biker bowed forward, with gray hair and a smiling face, both respectful and humble. The fourth prince helped and rescued the young lady from the bandits' hands. The mansion had already received a letter, and the marquis had already said he would personally visit and thank the fourth prince. Now that the fourth prince has returned, he will report to the marquis as soon as the old slave returns to the mansion. The fourth prince sat on his horse and waved his hand upon hearing the words, I have been ordered to suppress the bandits. Saving Miss Cheng is just a matter of taking advantage of the situation. You don't need to be polite. After finishing speaking, he looked at Qing Yuguan and said, if your family comes to pick him up, I'll leave first. If you have something to do, go to Zhuke Street. If I'm not in the mansion, just look for Lin Jing and Zhao Qing, and the same goes for me. The fourth prince suddenly showed such care, causing Qing Yuguan to be startled, and the butler followed in secret surprise. This appearance doesn't seem like it's just a passing favor. Signed, please recommend, follow up, and review. Let's work together to make this book more accessible to more people. Thank you all. Chapter 8. Entering the Prefecture. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miss was wronged on the way. The eyes of Butler Liao fell on Qing Yuguan along with the fourth prince. Just now, he just casually greeted him, and now the fourth prince has put on a clear stance to support Qing Yuguan, making Liao Qing pay more attention to this young lady whom he has never met before. I thought I was just a rural girl, but now it seems that I have some skills to have the support of the fourth prince. The butler bowed to annoy Qing Yuguan and then looked straight at him. In fact, a 13-year-old girl can only have a childish color. But Qing Yuguan had a pair of black phoenix eyes, just like General Hua and his late wife. Suddenly, the appearance of the late lady, who had been taboo in the mansion for many years, vaguely appeared in my mind. The mother and daughter's faces complemented each other, making the butler feel a bit dazed. That is a proud and untainted woman. Miss, a few days ago the mansion was in chaos, and only the old lady Chen was sent to pick you up. I thought she had been in the mansion for many years and was quite thoughtful in her work, but I didn't expect her to have shallow eyelids and dare to be strong in front of Mississippi. She even wanted to take advantage of Mrs. lack of confidence and suppress Mississippi. Don't worry, the mansion has already assigned them all to the village and won't let them interfere with your eyes again. Someone, please send Mrs. Chen directly to another village in Xiaotangshan as a punishment. As he spoke, Butler Liao Cheng waved his hand and several servants dressed in formal attire came forward to take care of Chen Mama, Kingolf, and the coachman Ma Yuliang, who were helping each other behind Chen Yuguan. Steward Liao's movements were too smooth and natural. Chen Yuguan was momentarily dumbfounded and couldn't react. He instinctively looked at the fourth prince beside him. The fourth prince frowned at this moment and looked at Butler Liao. I thought he had just expressed his support for Chen Yuguan, and the servants of the Marquis Qing mansion would have some concerns. However, I didn't expect that now, in front of myself, they all looked down upon Chen Yuguan so lightly. For a moment, the fourth prince didn't know whether to be angry or worried about the days of Chen Yuguan's stay in the Marquis' mansion after that. Get out of here. Dare to come forward and rob the fourth prince of anything. Zhao Qing stepped forward in front of him and kicked away the servant who was going to take over Chen Mama and the three of them. The servant let out a ouch, but dared not stare at Zhao Qing and the others in full armor, only turning his head to look at the butler Liao Cheng. Liao Cheng, seeing the people under the fourth prince's command wielding power, knew in his heart that he could fool the innocent young lady Chen Yuguan, but not the fourth prince. It seems that Madame's plan to prevent these three people from entering the city has come to fruition. His mind was spinning, but Liao Cheng's face remained expressionless, still smiling and bowing to the fourth prince. The fourth prince understands that the fifth prince often comes to the mansion to find the second miss and the crown prince, and he is also as familiar with you as the fifth prince. Therefore, the servants are not as distinguished as the fifth prince, so he went straight forward to prepare to take over. Currently, the fourth prince still wants to report to His Majesty. Let's hand over these unruly servants to the old slave. The madam has already given punishment, and the old slave will take them back to be punished. Liao Cheng is still trying to fulfill his wife's orders. No matter what, these incompetent servants cannot be allowed to enter the city. Who gave you the courage to act recklessly and take advantage of the fourth prince? Lin Jing whipped over, and the butler in front of him, who had been laughing all along, suddenly had a whip mark on his face, which looked very hot. Liao Cheng, who had been in the dignity of the Marquis Cheng's mansion for many years, was now beaten in the face by the fourth prince's henchman. He was horrified and covered his cheeks, quickly kowtowing and admitting his guilt. Your Highness, please forgive me. Humph. The fourth prince snorted coldly, forgive me. What kind of forgiveness? You are so proud in front of me, who gave you the courage? Is it Marquis Cheng or fifth brother? The fourth prince's tone was faint, but it conveyed a hint of meaning, making Liao Cheng kneel more thoroughly, his forehead falling to the ground. Chen Yuguan looked in front of him and instantly became furious, feeling a bit confused. He looked at the fourth prince and said, didn't you say you want me to be obedient? Now that you have started to act, can anyone believe that you have established a submissive character? Chen Yuguan's eyes turned from the butler under the horse and then turned to the fourth prince. The butler just bowed to the fourth prince with an extremely dignified gesture, but now he is so embarrassed. When the fourth prince leaves, will the butler lose face and become angry? Chen Yuguan's eyes were puzzled. The fourth prince felt Chen Yuguan's gaze and said directly, previously, I taught you obedience. Today, I will teach you again. Some people don't show you respect in face, so you don't need to show them face. After speaking, before Chen Yuguan could react, he directly ordered, Zhao Cheng. My humble position is. Zhao Cheng threw aside the Chen Mama he was holding and went straight to the fourth prince's horse to kneel and salute. Take Mrs. Chen and a few others, escort Miss Cheng back to the Marquis' mansion, and see who is showing off their authority and showing off in front of my highness." The fourth prince's majestic voice made the steward Liao Cheng's face even worse. In the past, there was a sign of the marquis's mansion, and everyone would give him a thin face. Even the fifth prince often came to the marquis's mansion and respectfully called himself Uncle Liao when he met the young lady. However, he did not expect that the fourth prince, known as the iron-faced prince, would give him a solid taste of kicking an iron plate. "I will report back to the palace, and when you return from the marquis's mansion, report back to me." Leaving a sentence, the fourth prince rode his horse and left the city gate. In the blink of an eye, only the Marquis Cheng's mansion and his entourage were left, along with guards such as Qing Yuguan and Zhao Cheng, as well as the onlookers at the city gate. "Steward Liao, get up, right. You heard what the fourth prince said just now, didn't you? Why don't you get up and lead the way? This is the first time Miss has returned to the mansion in her life, thanks to your blessings and the care of the fourth prince's people." Since he couldn't be obedient, Qing Yuguan didn't want to show respect to the wise and virtuous officials in front of the butler anymore. He sat upright on the horse and commanded, "Liao the butler," from a high position. "Brother Zhao Cheng, I'm going to trouble you again. Let's go." Zhao Cheng nodded with Qing Yuguan and once again gathered the three of Chenpozi, leading the team to the Marquis Cheng's mansion. "Miss, please wait a moment." The old servant entered the mansion and reported that the lady had returned today. She specially waited with the Marquis in the mansion to welcome Mississippi. "Please wait at the door for a moment, and someone will naturally come out to greet her." Liao Cheng is actually an old man. The moment when he bowed his head and begged for mercy in front of the fourth prince, it seemed as if it had never happened before. After explaining to Qing Yuguan, he hurriedly ran towards the gate of the Marquis's mansion. The guard gatehouse at the entrance opened a crack in the door as soon as the butler Liao came over, allowing the butler to enter. Seeing the butler Liao Qing disappear at the entrance as if being chased, Qing Yuguan also took the opportunity to look at the Marquis Cheng's mansion, which he had left since he was born. The first generation of Marquis Cheng was rewarded for his achievements in conquering the world with the help of Emperor Gaozu. Therefore, the Marquis Cheng's position was full of weight, and the Marquis Cheng's mansion was also very imposing. The platform is towering and naturally exudes a majestic aura. There are 3 beast-headed gates, with 2 teams of guards standing guard outside. The courtyard wall extends outwards and stretches out without an end in sight. Only from the main entrance can one feel the width and vastness of the Marquis's mansion. Looking at this huge Marquis's mansion, Qing Yuguan's heart was calm for some reason. There was a deep encirclement inside, and I don't know how deep it was. She was born here and now she's back here. Qing Yuguan looked at the Marquis's mansion in front of him, his eyes unconsciously becoming distant. Zhao Cheng was behind Qing Yuguan, mesmerized by her gaze, and followed her to look at the grand Marquis's mansion. Suddenly, a small door next to the gate of the Marquis's mansion opened, and inside was the butler Liao Cheng, who had just disappeared from the main entrance. He had already changed into a new outfit, with a smile on his face, as if the disheveled appearance he had seen earlier had disappeared. At this moment, he pushed open the small door and took a half-step back on his side, welcoming a delicate and luxurious young girl and a somewhat round and elegant young man from behind. "Miss Eyre, young master, be careful of the threshold." Just now, the steward Liao, who had a faint sense of pride in front of the fourth prince, willingly bent down, afraid that the master in front of him would fall and knock him down. He was attentive and attentive. "Sister, and this adult, my father has been waiting in the backyard for half a day. Come with me quickly." The girl in front of her was bright and charming, and she came up with a sweet smile inviting her, as if she were familiar with guests coming to her door. Apricot eyes are bright and lively, with a distinctive oval face and 2 dimples on either side of the cheeks. Slightly pursing her lips, it seems to contain a sweet smile. Wearing an apricot yellow jacket and skirt, with a flowing luster, a head of black hair adorned with golden emerald. She is the female protagonist Qing Yulo, who was born with a golden spoon and is loved by everyone in the book. At this moment, Qing Yuguan had no time to observe the female lead more. Instead, he turned around and glanced at Zhao Qing, shaking his head. If I were myself, it wouldn't matter if I entered the mansion through the back door. But now brother Zhao Qing is coming back with me. He represents the fourth prince in sending me back to the mansion with a kind heart, and I can't disappoint him. Master Liao, go report to Marquis Qing and ask him to take the initiative. Open the main door to welcome brother Zhao. If not, I will follow brother Zhao and report to Xintiandi mansion together. Liao Cheng's eyes twitched as he stared closely at Qing Yuguan. What case did he report? Naturally, it is a major case of harassing slaves and harming masters. In ancient times, there were differences in hierarchy, and committing the following offenses would naturally be a major crime. Liao Qingxin will tighten his heart next time. In the past, he was a dignified and capable butler of the Marquis's mansion, but today he has suffered several setbacks. The fourth prince is just that, this baseless young lady is just a country girl after all. He just respectfully called her miss, she really caught on. If she were to report to Xintiandi mansion, the face of whole mansion would be torn off. Liao Cheng's face changed and he looked at Qing Yuguan with deep meaning in his eyes. Miss, who has just returned to the capital, may not know the depth and importance of this matter. Why don't you follow me into the mansion first and let your father, Marquis Qing, personally teach me? This gate will only be opened and an angel or a distinguished guest is at the door. It's all a family, so there's no need to stir up trouble. Miss looks friendly, and I don't think she's the kind of person who doesn't understand the rules and causes trouble without reason. Bold. Jiao Nu is deceiving the master. Open your eyes and see the word Qing on this plaque. This is Miss Cheng's home in Guanyu. You Jiao Nu, just a watchdog, dare to bark at the master. Who gave you the courage and relied on whose power? Zhao Qing scolded with a black face, making everyone at the entrance involuntarily look at the old butler. Being scolded like this, the previous dignity has been completely destroyed. Housekeeper Liao threw himself at the doorstep with embarrassment, his face looking both ugly and ferocious. The young master's fair and tender face was captured by Zhao Cheng's evil energy, and he couldn't help but hide behind his second sister. Qing Yulo hugged the young brother and looked at Zhao Qing. As if not seeing Zhao Cheng's solemn expression, he said gently, "This is the guardian of the fourth prince, isn't he? The butler doesn't know how to speak. If you feel offended, I'll apologize for him." Speaking, he turned his head to look at Qing Yuguan. "Big sister, isn't it just going through the gate? It's not a big deal. Uncle Liao is also used to being cautious. In previous years, our mansion only opened the gate every year to welcome the blessings of angels during the Chinese New Year." After explaining to Qing Yuguan, Qing Yulo looked at butler Liao and said, "Uncle Liao, go open the door. I'll take care of anything." Liao Qing ran up the stairs and shouted for the gatekeeper to open the door. Qing Yuguan watched as the door creaked open and couldn't help but look at Qing Yulo. At this moment, Qing Yulo had a kind face and a smile on her face, as if she had just taken the opportunity to clear the situation, rather than giving Qing Yuguan a warning. Blocking her door, Qing Yulo was opened with just one sentence. Qing Yuguan just wanted Marquis Qing to come forward and go to the government. He was so surprised that Qing Yulo's calm tone and smile made him feel like a clown jumping off a beam. Zhao Qing looked at Qing Yuguan. Qing Yuguan let out a smirk. The Marquis's mansion is like this, when it comes to speaking and doing things, one must change one's mind 18 times. What I want is to press your head. The servants in the mansion also look at the wind direction. Every time someone stabilizes you, the servant naturally doesn't want to be wronged with you. Only those who are sharp and intelligent can have more people admire and flatter others. Qing Yuguan looked at the bright and charming Qing Yulo in front of him, and suddenly lost the feeling of facing a formidable enemy just now. I thought it was so remarkable, but it's just a common person. Qing Yuguan dismounted, and Zhao Qing followed suit. "Brother Zhao, please." Qing Yuguan extended his hand to invite, as if she was born the master of this marquis' mansion. Zhao Qing also smiled. He was just worried that Qing Yuguan and Qing Yulo would lose out on him. I didn't expect her to ignore Miss Qing and turn the tables on her. With this kind of heart, Zhao Qing also felt a little relieved and didn't worry about Miss Qing, a helpless person, being punished in the marquis' mansion. "Please." Zhao Qing followed Qing Yuguan's gesture and walked with her towards the gate. The two walked past Qing Yulo as if they couldn't see him. Qing Yulo has never been ignored like this, as if she had just punched cotton. Moreover, this is the place where she grew up, her home. Qing Yuguan is just a guest, how dare she? Qing Yulo's face stiffened for a moment, and Liao Qing jumped out again. "Miss, the Zhao guards represent the fourth prince and can enter the mansion. The guards behind you are all servants. The marquis and his wife are waiting for you in the backyard. It's against the rules for you to bring so many foreign men in. These guards will stay in the corner room and wait. Chen Mama and the three others, I will send someone to bring them to the marquis for you." At this moment, Qing Yuguan had no intention of encountering endless battles and was too lazy to talk much. He walked straight into the gate of the marquis' mansion. "No need, I'll be in the front yard of Ermingtang, waiting for Marquis Qing to come over." Compared to the previous impatience, there was an extra hint of commanding authority in the tone. Make Liao Qing unconsciously want to comply. Watching Qing Yuguan step into the gate and walk straight towards the Mingtang with Zhao Qing and other fully armed guards, Liao Qing felt as if he had seen the proud and upright figure of his former wife, and unconsciously shuddered. Signed, please recommend, follow up, and review. Let's work together to make this book more accessible to more people. Thank you all. Chapter 9. Conflict. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Conflict. What, in the Mingtang? Steward Liao, didn't you tell Miss that Marquis specifically waited for her in the Qingxin Hall? This is the courtyard that Marquis specifically instructed me to clean up for Mississippi. Miss used to live here, and I thought Miss would be pleasantly surprised when she returned. We haven't seen each other for many years, reminiscing about sister's voice and appearance, and dispelling the barrier. Who knows? Butler Liao came over to invite the Marquis to the front yard's Erming Hall. Marquis Lady Yang Shuiying waited with Marquis in the main hall of Qingxin Hall for a long time, but you may have heard the butler report that the young lady was waiting for Marquis to resolve the case in the front yard with the fourth prince's guard and others. Marquis Chang's face suddenly felt a bit disappointed. Marquis Lady Yang Shuiying saw this and quickly comforted her. Marquis, the young lady didn't know the surprise you had prepared for her. The child was wronged on the way, and it was my stepmother who didn't know anyone, so she chose a few foolish things like Chen Mama. So, I will go with you to the front yard's Erming Hall to apologize to the young lady, and after the young lady calms down, your father and daughter will come to this Qingxin Hall to reminisce about the old lady together. Madame Yang spoke calmly and with a deep understanding of righteousness. The word reminiscing made even Marquis Qing feel a bit uneasy. What kind of nostalgia is just returning everything to its rightful owner? Every blade of grass and every tree here is the hard work of Su Jun back then. I just want to hand it over to her daughter. Forget it, since she is entangled in worldly affairs, I will handle the case for her. Otherwise, she may not have the heart to accept the hard work of you and me in cleaning up her heart, nor will she have the time to miss her biological mother. As he spoke, Qing Fangchuan stood up, with a hint of sparks in his movements, as if tinged with anger. Yang Shuiying quickly stopped her and said, Marquis, Miss has been away from the Marquis's mansion since she was born. She has grown up alone in these years and has never seen her parents. It's normal that she can't understand your intentions and longing. On the contrary, as a stepmother, I didn't arrange good hands for her, which made her feel emotional towards the Marquis's mansion at once. It was my fault. Don't get angry at the children and scare them again. If you have any dissatisfaction, just deal with me. Miss returning to the mansion is a good thing. In the past, you used to talk about Miss, but now that Miss is easy to come back, don't get angry and make the father and daughter separate. Although young Shuiying has given birth to 2 children, she is only in her 30s this year. Her apricot kernel eyes exude warmth, her light green jacket and skirt show off her slender waist, and her face is filled with self-blame. She lightly grasps Cheng Ho's sleeve and robe with her bare hands, her face full of worry and self-blame, as if afraid that if she lets go, the man in front of her will go to provoke punishment. Cheng Fangchuan was pulled by Yang Shuiying, but she couldn't bear to worry. She gently pulled down Yang Shuiying's hand and placed it in her own hand. Since you're not at ease, come with me. Quickly get rid of those mundane matters and bring Yuguan over to see the Qingxin Hall you've cleaned up for her. Seeing the Marquis's smile reappear, Mrs. Yang finally felt at ease, with a gentle smile on her face. It's because of you that I feel at ease, she said. Butler Liao, let's go. Don't make the young lady wait in a hurry. Madame Yang turned around and gave a command, and Liao Cheng quickly agreed, bowing down to lead the way. Liao Cheng's surplus light slid over the hands of the Marquis and his wife, admiring them from the side of the road ahead. Madame Yang looks weak and delicate, but she always manages to easily grasp the Marquis. In all these years, no one has won the Marquis's heart more than Madame Yang. Liao Qingjiu was in the Marquis Cheng's mansion, and he could be considered watching Marquis Cheng grow up. From a young and elegant young master to a powerful Marquis like today. Miss Hua, who was once as noble and talented as the Marquis, is vastly different from the stepwife in front of her. Therefore, this woman is not only concerned with her background and pride. Lowering oneself and being considerate is the key to a smooth and fulfilling life. Liao Cheng's thoughts surged in his heart, but he remained silent and quickly led the way to Mingtang. Miss, both the Marquis and Madam have come to see you. Liao Cheng walked into the door and reported, followed by Marquis Cheng and his stepwife. The Mingtang of Chengho Mansion is spacious and imposing, with 4 pillars connecting to the sky and a transparent and spacious interior. Cheng Yuguan and Zhao got up from the right side armchair and looked at the Cheng Ho couple walking towards the backlight. At first, I only saw the 2 of them dressed in splendid attire. In the blink of an eye, they walked down the hall and their faces were exposed. The man has handsome eyebrows and eyes, with a graceful and elegant demeanor, and an extraordinary aura. The woman is gentle and beautiful, with a myriad of appearances. A well-matched pair of divine companions. For the first time, this thought flashed through Cheng Yuguan's heart. I've met Marquis Lord and Marquis Madam. I wonder if you could serve tea. Zhao and I rushed early and haven't taken a sip of water yet. We're really thirsty. Faced with the 2 lords of the Marquis's mansion who showed signs of nostalgia, excitement, and emotion, Cheng Yuguan's words disrupted the atmosphere. Cheng Fangchuan's emotions were interrupted, unable to move up or down. His eyes scanned the mahogany coffee table in the middle of the chair, and it was indeed empty. Butler, what's going on? Cheng Fangchuan's gaze was fixed on the butler. Liao Cheng let out a ouch and patted his head. I'm anxious to tell you that I forgot to order the servants to serve tea and dim sum. Then he looked at Cheng Yuguan and said, Eldest lady, Zhao bodyguard, do you want tea or sweet soup? Do you want dim sum or fresh fruit? I will definitely prepare it for you. Looking at Liao Cheng, who was bowed and attentive, Zhao Qingbiao waved his hand. Well, the tea and dim sum in your Marquis Cheng's residence are too noble, and we are not worthy of such rude people. Marquis, the rules in your residence are quite different from those in other people's residence. I don't know. I thought you had a tea house in your residence, and you could only give something if someone ordered food and paid for it. But don't be too mean. The tea house still has a pot of white water. You have dried people here for a long time. Cheng Fangchuan's face had turned black. Liao Cheng quickly lay on the ground and said, It's all my fault. I've been feeling anxious since seeing the young lady, and I don't know what to do. I'll personally prepare tea for the young lady. As he spoke, Liao Qing crawled out of the hall and went to prepare tea. Madame Ho's face stiffened as she apologized to the black-faced marquis. It's all my fault. I indulged the servants in the mansion too much, which made people neglect the guests. If you go down, I will definitely punish you severely. Marquis Qing remained silent, only letting go of Lady Ho's hand and walking towards Qing Yuguan. I am your father. Marquis Qing had a towering figure, probably more than 8 feet tall. Qing Yuguan had just started pulling his head, so he appeared small in front of Marquis Qing. At present, the two of them looked at each other, and Cheng Ho's eyes were full of emotions, while Qing Yuguan was calm. Should I call you Dad or Hui? Just call me Father, that's what Qianli and I both call it. Big sister, just like us, is fine. Before Marquis Qing could even speak, Qing Yulo walked over the door and leaned affectionately against his father. Young Master Qing Qianli hugged his father's leg. Even though he looked 4 or 5 years old, Marquis Qing still picked him up. This is your second sister, Qing Yulo, and younger brother Qing Qianli. From now on, your siblings will get closer and closer. Your second sister has many close friends in the capital, so let her lead you and you can quickly get to know the capital. Madame Ho also stepped forward and stood beside her daughter. Yes, Mississippi Marquis has long wanted to pick you up. Firstly, he feels that you are young and not suitable for long journeys. Secondly, in recent years, there have been many ups and downs in the family. Now that you are back, our family is finally reunited. In the evening, I have prepared a good banquet for you, and the whole family will have a good reunion dinner. At this moment, Butler Liao had already brought his servants over and placed refreshments on various tables and tables. He also stood behind the marquis and looked at Qing Yuguan with a smile on his face. One after another, standing in front of him, Qing Yuguan still had a smile on his face, and the curve of his upturned mouth remained unchanged. Zhao Qing saw this and stood behind Qing Yuguan, who was alone. Qing Yuguan turned his head to look at Zhao Qing, his smile deepening. Suddenly walked to the nearby coffee table, picked up the teapot, and poured out a cup of clear tea. Brother Zhao, you've been working hard all the way. I've been bothering you for a long time. Today, I'm only offering you 1 cup of tea. From now on, we'll all be in the capital, and Yuguan has some acquaintances to contact. Don't be bothered by me. Marquis Qing and his family were left aside by Qing Yuguan. Zhao Qing looked at Marquis Qing with an unhappy expression in his eyes, took the tea cup, and drank it down. It's easy to say, if someone makes you unhappy in the future, come find me. Although I'm just a 6th grade guard and can't vent my anger on you, I can hear you complain and complain a few times, giving you a place to vent your anger. Qing Yuguan's eyes were slightly red. She was just angry and getting close to Brother Zhao. I didn't expect Brother Zhao to say so, as if he could always stand on his side, which moved her for a moment. Facing the big family of Marquis Qing, I didn't feel much at first, but now I feel that Wei Chu is surging up. No rules. Marquis Qing shook his sleeves and said, as a young lady of the Marquis's mansion, you should know how to avoid suspicion. Although he is the 4th Prince's guard, he is still an outsider. As a young lady, you should know how to have self-respect and self-respect. Qing Yuguan turned around and looked at Cheng Ho with an angry face. Speaking of the rules, I remember, he said. Qing Yuguan set his gaze behind the chair and kept shrinking, trying to reduce the presence of Chen Mama and the 3 of them. Father, this is the confession of those bandits, as well as the handwritten inscriptions of Ma Yuliang and Chen Mama. It is stated that they were instructed to take action against me. The 4th Prince did not suppress such fake bandits, so he asked Brother Zhao to come with me and hand them over to you for disposal. Cheng Ho's face remained unchanged, and he looked at the confession handed over by Yuguan. Madame Ho stepped forward at this moment and said, Miss, it's all my fault. A few days ago, the mansion was in chaos, so Grandma Chen was sent to pick you up. She is also an old lady of the mansion. She used to serve in the old lady's courtyard, but now that the old lady has gone to another villa for rest, she has been thinking about earning a place in the mansion again. She has also been thinking about trying to please me by hurting you. Alas, she has also made a mistake. I am just the steward of the mansion, and the only ones in charge of the mansion are the Marquis and the old lady. Even so, if you are innocent and implicated, it is still me. This lady in charge was careless and didn't notice the fight among the subordinates in a timely manner. On my end, I will apologize for you first. If you still don't get angry, just beat and scold me. I have nothing to say. Speaking, he bowed to Qing Yuguan, and Qing Yulo quickly grabbed his mother. Big sister, my mother's health is not good. There are hundreds of people, big and small, in the mansion, and she can't care about them. The servants are vying for power and favor, making their own decisions. My mother is not a judge who can detect every detail. It was just a small mistake, so please forgive my mother. Qing Qianli saw a second sister like this, and he struggled to get down. He ran to his mother's side, hugged her leg, and looked at Qing Yuguan like second sister. You are a bad person. Since you entered the door, it has made second sister and mother uncomfortable. Before you came back, our family was fine. You should go back to your Qing family village, you are not welcome here. The boy's sharp accusation made Madame Ho hesitate to apologize and quickly grabbed her son. Miss, it's still a small distance and you have no intention of speaking. Don't listen to him. The Marquis has cleaned up the yard for you early in the morning and is waiting for you to come back. Don't let these trivial matters interfere with the father-daughter reunion. One by one, Qing Fangchuan couldn't bear to read the confession in his hand. He had a rough idea of what had happened in his mind. After all, a few days ago, some servants reported the improper behavior of Chen Mama and others to the government. Madame had already apologized to him and blamed herself for a long time. Today Yuguan returned, and he and his wife had already prepared a room full of good things to apologize to her. I originally planned to have the butler bring Yuguan to the Qingxin Hall first, show her all the good things to apologize for, and then persuade her to vent her anger. Unexpectedly, step by step, they opened the lid and started a commotion in the Mingtang. All right. Qing Fangchuan spoke up. The chaotic mess in Mingtang suddenly quieted down. Qianli, this is your elder sister. How did you talk to your own sister? Please apologize to your elder sister. Although Qing Qianli is small, he is a well-behaved and obedient person. Upon hearing this, he immediately lowered his head to Qing Yuguan and said, Sister, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that to you. Qing Fangchuan pointed at Qing Qianli and said, Your younger brother is just 5 years old this year. He has been spoiled by your grandmother since childhood and has a childish temper. Don't take his words to heart. As he spoke, Qing Fangchuan casually handed the confession to the butler beside him. I don't need to look at these testimonies to know that you have suffered injustice on the way. You grew up in the Qing family village, where we were all blood relatives and there were no such chaotic people or things. You will know it when you enter the mansion. Although the servants in this mansion are sincere, each person has their own small plan. The hearts of the people in the mansion are complex, and you will know it by reading and learning more in the future. Sometimes, as the head of the mansion, a casual word can make the servants fight for their heads and blood. This Chen Mama dares to plan to harm the head of the mansion for the sake of seeking favor. Of course she deserves to die, but she has served your grandmother before. In a moment, I will have someone send her to another village in Xiaotangshan. Your grandmother is currently resting there, so let her deal with this person. Don't worry, your grandmother will definitely make decisions for you and won't let you suffer for nothing. Qing Fangchuan's words relieved everyone in the Qing family above the Mingtang. Not only Lady Ho, but also the butler and Chen Mama huddled on the ground. All right, let's just pass this matter by. You'll be back on your first day today, come with me to see the yard you'll be living in from now on. That's where your mother used to live, and now Madame has decorated it for you again. You'll definitely like it when you see it. Let's go, follow me. Cheng Ho reached out his hand, and Cheng Yuguan looked at the hand in front of him without moving. Just as she watched Lady Ho's family take turns singing, reciting, and hitting, her eyebrows didn't even move. Yuguan, listen. Cheng Fangchuan drinks low. End of this chapter. 10, Chapter 10 Division. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No need, father. I'm not in the mood to see the room you and your stepwife have prepared. I'll just ask you two things. If you can satisfy me, I'll be satisfied. Cheng Yuguan was indifferent, while Cheng Yulo and Cheng Qianli couldn't help but look at each other, then turned their heads to look at their mother. After Lady Yang was surprised, I don't know what came to my mind, some reminisced, and some lost in thought. The butler, along with Chen Mama and a few others, were somewhat gloating at the good play. They have been serving the Marquis since childhood, knowing that although he appears gentle and amiable, he actually has a somewhat domineering temper. He is the only legitimate son of the Marquis's mansion, who has been good-looking and intelligent since childhood, so he was praised by everyone in the Marquis's mansion to grow up. The young Marquis was one of the best sons in the capital, otherwise the only daughter of the Hui family would not have valued the Marquis's marriage. Although the Marquis was the crown prince at that time, Miss Hui from the Hui family was worthy of the character of a crown prince. People who have grown up with ease from a young age are somewhat individualistic and cannot tolerate others saying no. Otherwise, the proud Miss Hui from back then, the first lady, would not have perished, and the second lady would not have been the unknown Miss Biao from back then. The Marquis has now lost his youthful frivolity and become more stable. But that's just a superficial phenomenon. They watched the Marquis grow up from a young age, but they didn't know that the Marquis's rebellion was that others went against his will. Thinking about the fate of Lady Xian, Liao Cheng and Chen Mama looked at Cheng Yuguan with even more disdainful eyes, just an orphan girl. Dare to save their face like this, don't fall into their hands when they face difficulties in the Ho mansion in the future. Cheng Yuguan naturally didn't know that someone was already waiting for his fate, but instead looked straight at Cheng Ho with unwavering determination in his eyes. Cheng Ho's heart had already begun to become impatient. He was originally happily waiting to reunite with his eldest daughter, but he didn't expect these events to come one by one, making him feel restless. I originally wanted to handle these matters as soon as possible and show my eldest daughter the carefully prepared room. However, I didn't expect it to be just my own wishful thinking, without his usual enthusiasm and joy. You tell me. Marquis Cheng's tone was faint, even the rough man Zhao Cheng felt the coldness in it. He couldn't help but look at Cheng Yuguan. The fourth prince's words of deference seemed to have been thrown out 1,000 miles away just as he approached the capital today. Zhao Cheng didn't know whether Cheng Yuguan's indifference at this moment was good or bad, as he thought it was his own prince who was the first to break the submissive approach. Firstly, it's my yard. Is there a small kitchen? Secondly, when Grandma Chen came to pick me up, I was seasick and couldn't board the ship. There was only one carriage, so my third cousin, who was escorting me, took a boat to the north. In theory, water should be much faster than land, but I didn't see my third cousin at the Marquis's mansion. Therefore, I want to know his whereabouts. Cheng Yuguan finished talking about the two things he was most concerned about in one breath, then looked at Cheng Ho and waited for his answer. Cheng Fangchuan's eyebrows furrowed even tighter. The Qingxin Hall was where your mother used to live, with all the necessary amenities, including a small kitchen. It's just that our family has just reunited, so it's better to eat together. There's no need to open fire alone. As for your three cousins, Cheng Fangchuan looked at the butler beside him, who took a wise step forward and said, Miss, the ship that Tang Gongzi was riding on collided and had some accidents on the way. Fortunately, the mansion had received a letter from Tang Gongzi a few days ago. Tang Gongzi will soon arrive in the capital and enter the mansion safely. Humph. Cheng Yuguan couldn't help but sneer. Cheng Ho erupted in an instant. What are you sneering at? Didn't you hear the butler say earlier? It was an accident. When you're out, do you think you're the big slap in the face of Qing family village? Who can guarantee that there's no accident? Now your third cousin is fine again, he'll be able to go to Beijing and reunite with you in a few days. What are you still unhappy about? Madame Yang pulled Marquis Cheng, but Marquis Cheng shook off Madame Yang's hand and pointed at Qing Yuguan. How many things have you been looking for this day? The butler is not right, the tea is not right, and you are not satisfied with Chen Mama's handling. If you don't want to enter Beijing so much, I would have told you to stay in Qing family village for your whole life. I am your father, and this house is filled with your blood and family members, as well as the elderly people you have been serving for years. Who can you show such a strange and sinister attitude to? If you have the ability, don't stay in the Marquis's mansion, don't let these people take care of you. Marquis. Mrs. Yang saw that Marquis's words were not correct, so she quickly grabbed Qing Fangchuan and apologized to Qing Yuguan, explaining, Marquis is also too nervous about you. You don't know, since the person who picked you up left the capital, Marquis has replaced the curtains and decorations in your house 3 times. It's all my fault for not arranging them properly, which has caused filth between your father and daughter. Miss, look at my thin face. Don't worry about these small details. Let's go to Qingxin Hall together to see your future residence. How about that? The Marquis carefully arranged it, and I guarantee you will like it. Mrs. Yang's words were sincere and sincere. Qing Fangchuan twisted his head as if he was still angry, but he didn't immediately leave, nor did he shout and rush people like before. Even Qing Qianli, under the guidance of Qing Yulo, came to hold Qing Yuguan's hand and said, Sister, don't argue with your father. Let's go to Qingxin Hall together. In the past, I wanted to go, but my mother was always afraid that I would damage things and wouldn't let me go. Qing Yuguan withdrew his hand from Qing Qianli's small hand, then looked at Qing Yulo and Mrs. Yang, who were showing concern on their faces. Finally, he looked at Qing Fangchuan, who turned his head and remained silent, as if waiting for Qing Yuguan to admit his mistake and give him the steps. Amidst the astonished and inexplicable gazes of the crowd, he gently shook his head. There have been too many accidents in the Marquis's mansion, and I can't rest assured. If I have a choice, I wouldn't mind staying at the Marquis's mansion. Before my third cousin entered the capital, I only dined in my own Qingxin Hall small kitchen. If there were to be another accident, I would have sacrificed my life in vain. Please allow me, my father. Qing Yuguan surprisingly hardened Marquis Cheng, causing everyone's jaws to drop. Even Chen Mama, who was lying on the ground waiting to see the end of Qing Yuguan, raised her head in surprise and stared at Qing Yuguan in amazement. No one, including the old lady, dares to go against the Lord's wishes like this. How dare this wild girl? Okay. You're doing great. Qing Fangchuan turned back and raised his fingers, trembling with anger, pointing to Qing Yuguan. Butler, please use a ruler. After all these years, you've been without a butler in Qingjia village and used to being wild. Today, I'll let you know when to be obedient and save you from going out in the future and causing trouble for your family. Go. After the Mingtang, there is the outer study where the Marquis's mansion teaches his son. He is afraid that the women in the backyard will spoil him, so the ruler is naturally located not far away in the outer study. Seeing the butler hesitating, Lady Ho quickly rushed over and grabbed Marquis Cheng's hand. Marquis, this is the only bloodline of the eldest sister. If you don't look at the monk's face or the Buddha's face, what's wrong with the eldest sister on her first day home? Just talk about her and don't take action. Your father and daughter have never met before. If you take action again, wouldn't it be even more difficult? If you have a grudge over this, wouldn't Marquis regret it? Yang never expected that Qing Yuguan's temper would be even worse than that of the Hua family back then. Even the Hua family, seeing the Marquis being angry, wanted to avoid his sharpness. At this moment, Qing Yuguan was simply adding fuel to the fire. She is an orphan girl without the support of her mother's family, how dare she? Yang looked at Qing Yuguan in anger and said, "Miss, why don't you apologize to your father? Let him calm down." Under the ghostly gaze of everyone in the Marquis's mansion, Qing Yuguan said calmly, "Why did I do anything wrong? Why, Marquis's mansion has been plagued by accidents one after another. As a victim, I can't speak up clearly. At home, it's not in front of outsiders, and I still need to cover up. Who should I cover up for? Qing Yuguan is on the road, taught by the fourth prince to be obedient. But early this morning, the fourth prince took the lead in challenging the familiar butler, and behind him was brother Zhao present. Qing Yuguan followed suit and wanted to vent his dissatisfaction. What if we give it a beating? As long as she can't fight to death, she will vent her frustrations and find justice for herself. Qing Yuguan also raised his hand and pointed to Qin Mama beside him. This poisonous woman, Jiao Nu, is pretending to be a mountain bandit and trying to rape me and ruin my life. You just casually say that everyone has their own careful thoughts and will be dealt with by others, and expose them. If the clan leader and uncle were here, he would probably kill this Jiao Nu himself and vent his anger on me. What about you? Are you really my father? I know that you have never raised me since childhood, held me, and had no feelings for me like Qing Yulo or Qing Qianli. So I didn't expect you to think more about me, but you can't even do justice for me. How can I consider you, a person I don't know, as my father? If you want to teach me a lesson, just hit me, but put my words here and make me admit my mistake, it's impossible. What kind of corruption? What kind of disguised bandit? The person this troublemaker is looking for. What does this mean? Upon hearing Qing Yuguan's words, Qing Fangchuan was not only angry, but also surprised. He stared at Yang with round eyes, then turned to glaring angrily at Qin Mama. Qin Mama quickly lowered her head and shrank her body. What do you mean? There are personal and material evidence, and they were all presented to you just now. It's too artificial for you to pretend not to know now. Qing Yuguan glanced at the butler, and Qing Fangchuan also reacted, "Give me the testimony." Butler Liao Qing glanced at his stepwife Yang and took out the testimony just given by Qing Yuguan from his arms. Qing Fangchuan looked at everything at once and only then realized the details. He held his testimony and looked at Yang, who had a guilty face. This is what you called an accident. Buying and colluding, deliberately playing tricks, this is also called an accident. What is that called harming others? Yang held her own children in her arms, her eyes turning red at some point. Tears hung on Sai Xue's skin, and before she could speak, her heart was already softened. At this moment, she spoke in a pitiful tone. Mrs. Chen's actions were ruthless. I have already reported this to the Marquis. She is the old lady's person, and I am afraid that if I say it out, the old lady's face will be tarnished. The Marquis will also be angry, so I did not explain these details too much. Anyway, when this old lady comes back, the Marquis will not let her go. After all, if this kind of thing is said out, it may also affect the young lady's reputation. It's better to send her out and let her suffer the consequences on her own. You. Qing Fangchuan pointed at Yang Shi, but couldn't say a word for a long time. He turned around and glared at Chen Pezi, "You wicked slave, drag me out and beat me to death." Chen Pezi had already collapsed to the ground, frightened and disoriented. Marquis, as soon as the young lady returned today, you killed her servants and spread rumors. I had intended to breathe air with the old lady and let her deal with her in the manner. This way, it would not only vent my anger on the young lady but also prevent any rumors. Yang approached Marquis Qing with soft words of persuasion. Upon hearing this, Qing Ho let out his anger and said, "Drag it out, 30 big boards, and then pull it onto Zhuangzi to let her fend for herself." The butler immediately called for someone to come and take Mrs. Qin away. Above the bright hall, quiet down again. For a long time, Qing Fangchuan coughed lightly and said, "Yuguan, it was my father's misunderstanding that almost made you feel wronged. If you want to build the Qingxin Hall and the small kitchen, you can build it. My father will make up a few servants for you to make Zhangzhou Prefecture's delicious food, which will save you the trouble of adapting to the local conditions. Marquis Cheng rarely gave the steps, and Yang's expression was inexplicable. Qing Yulo looked at Qing Yuguan, his eyes deepening for the first time, showing jealousy. What Qing Yuguan wants to say is not just about Grandma Chen, but at this moment, what's the point of saying it? Looking at Yang's close proximity to Marquis Cheng, holding Qing Yulo and Qing Qianli on the other side, Qing Yuguan felt bland. After calculating, the goal has been achieved. Do we really need to discuss the pros and cons with a family of strangers to find justice? A woman named Chen is extremely difficult to handle, and if the matter involves Lady Yang, she will be even more rebellious. I'm tired. Qing Yuguan made a sound, and Qing Fangchuan couldn't help but secretly let out a sigh of relief. Along with Yang Shi, their face also brightened up. Miss has been working hard all the way, so it's time to take a good rest. Marquis, our family's reunion dinner can be eaten anytime. Let Miss rest quickly today. Qing Fangchuan nodded in unison. To be honest, the glaring expression of Qing Yuguan just now made him feel a bit uneasy. Now that there were steps, he quickly descended the donkey. Today, you can go rest first. In a few days, it will be Dragon Boat Festival, and your grandmother will also come back from Zhuangzi in Xiaotangquan. Let's meet again then. This is the key to the Qingxin Hall, and it's also your mother's property. Now it's given to you. From now on, you will be the new owner of the Qingxin Hall. Qing Fangchuan took out a brass key from his arms, with exquisite patterns on it. If he didn't look closely, he would have thought it was some exquisite utensil decoration. Your mother once prepared a whole house of good things for your birth, and I will point them out to you one day. Qing Yuguan took the key from Marquis Cheng's hand, thanked his father, and after seeing off Brother Zhao, he entered the Qingxin Hall. The magnificent and spacious atmosphere here, Qing Yuguan has no intention of admiring it for the time being. Now, she only wants to be alone. Sitting in the secluded hall of the Qingxin Hall, the light was blocked, as if it was because of the owner, and the servants who were serving had not yet settled in the Qingxin Hall. Qing Yuguan couldn't help but support his forehead as he thought about his first meeting with Marquis Cheng and everyone in the Marquis' mansion today. Yuguan is a newcomer and has suffered a lot of injustice. It's inevitable that she has a strong temper. You should be more tolerant of her. If she offends you with words on a regular basis, don't argue with her. Yang and his children were walking along the road with Marquis Cheng. Upon hearing Marquis Cheng's words, they gritted their teeth and smiled in agreement. Qing Qianli turned his head restlessly and looked around. Beside him, Qing Yulo listened to his father's words, but once again felt uncomfortable in his heart.